Hello and welcome to the...
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Did you get a big ice cube for you?
Did you get a big ice cube for you?
Hello and welcome to the Invincible Podcast, probably the best superhero podcast in the universe. This is a show where friends get to sit around and talk all things Invincible, a comic book by Robert Kirkman, Corey Walker, and Ryan Ottley. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan. Joining me today is Bill.
Hi, everybody.
And TJ.
It is me, isn't it?
Hey, it's TJ.
Weird.
It is. TJ, you got in a car accident?
Yeah.
What happened?
What a segue.
What happened?
You hit a Segway?
You hit a Segway?
Did they live?
Yeah, so I was driving down the boulevard, and the guy right in front of me slammed on his brakes, and I slammed on my brakes within plenty of time, and I didn't hit him, and then the guy behind me slammed into me. So we pulled off, we exchanged everything, and the cop came. It's 100% his fault because he hit me from behind.
The cop's fault.
Yeah. So I kind of feel bad for him because, it sucks because it wasn't initially his fault. But at the same time, I literally, I slammed on my brakes and I had enough time to be kind of make a scene. I'm like, what the fuck? And then he slammed into me. So, you know what I mean? He had plenty of time to stop.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it kind of
Did you see him coming like a T-Rex in
No.
your rearview mirror?
No.
Oh, you didn't even see him coming? Oh,
The last
man.
time I got rear-ended, which was 4 or 5 years ago,
I
saw it coming. It was, the sun was at that
That's the worst.
right spot where you can't see anything. And I was stopped at a red light. I'm like, this truck does not see me.
I remember 13 years ago, you and I were driving, or you were driving. I was
Oh my
in the passenger seat, and we stopped because we were trying to get into the other lane, and you saw a car coming full speed behind us.
This was us
and
merging onto the throughway,
and I'm
and it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, I was
Not
chilling.
even.
I was chilling in the passenger seat, and then you were like, TJ, we're about to get hit. I'm not kidding. We're about to get hit. And I'm like, what? And we didn't get hit. I think what happened? He veered off or something.
He went around.
But yeah, you thought for sure.
I was like, this is. I had fully prepared. I had time to warn
We're about
you
to get hit.
and prepare
Just so you know.
just so you know. Oh, yeah. But we are the Invincible Podcast. We talk all things Invincible. You can find us over at theinvinciblepodcast.com. You can email us to be a part of the show at theinvinciblepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, all that good stuff. We are also the Oblivion Song Podcast.
The Oblivion Song Podcast.
Now, we need to talk a little bit. So we're going to transition into our news section a little bit. But put a pin in the Oblivion Song
I have the
podcast.
pin.
You got that? Hold on to that pin for me.
Ooh, that's bringing it back old school.
Yeah.
Hold on to that. News-wise, one thing that I thought was cool that I want to bring it to everyone's attention is John Rauch, the colorist for Invincible, that especially the section that we're reading right now, is doing a cool thing over on Instagram where he's kind of taking a look back at some of his work and doing a commentary on it and some really cool inside baseball talk about the coloring.
He's been doing it a while now. It's actually really interesting, some of the stuff he puts on there.
Yep. So
It's really good.
Check that out. Just find we tweeted about it too. So just John Rauch's Instagram. It's not John Rauch on Instagram, but I don't have it in front of me. Otherwise, I mentioned the invinciblepodcast.com, our website. I recently, finally, updated it to have a reading guide on there. So if you or anyone you know ever wants to get into Invincible and would like to know how to read it chronologically with all the tie-ins, I went through and kind of broke it down for via trade paperback. The kind of the easiest way to tell when all the events happen and get the most out of it, or you can ignore all the tie-ins and read just Invincible, obviously, which you don't really need. But yeah,
Even if you've read them all, it's still a really cool thing to look at.
Yeah,
to
to
kind of
see
just
where-
remind yourself of the timeline and everything. It was pretty cool.
Yep. And then otherwise, right at the bottom of that, I had the with the help of Devin Barry, friend of ours and listener of the podcast, I collected all the appearances that Invincible has made in other comics, like Noble Causes or Savage Dragon and all that kind of stuff. And that brings me to the next point, which that'll be our next episode. My goal is to have all those read, and I want to be able to kind of talk a little bit about them on our next episode, which will be... What's that?
Are we all going to read them?
I mean, if you guys want to, I mean, I can loan them to you, but otherwise, my goal is to just sit down with you guys next month and say, Noble Causes issue 5 or whatever it is, this is a comic book about these characters, Invincible showed up and did this. And just kind of talk about it and be like, oh, okay, that was just like a fun little cameo.
I think I would rather have questions about that.
Yeah.
Like, tell us more, Ryan.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to try and get that together. And if you've read them or if you'd like to read along with us, that's what we'll be trying to do for next month's episode.
That's what we trying to do.
That's what we're trying to do. Now, that kind of does it for Invincible-related news. There's not much else out there, but in a roundabout way, I want to talk about Oblivion Song. So, TJ, that pin, you got that? You still got that pin? Why do you put it there? So,
It hurts so good.
So, the next time we record the Oblivion Song podcast is going to be in a week. So,
Yeah.
wait, I'm sorry. The next issue that comes out is in a week from now?
Yes,
Which you will be in Disney World.
I will.
So you won't be here when this issue comes out, which we would normally record right after. So we're going to be releasing the Oblivion Song podcast a week later than normal.
Yes.
So we won't get to talk about any kind of thoughts before we
Before
already
this
know
next
the answer.
issue.
Before we know the answer. We
So-
are theorizing. I'm gonna pass it to you, TJ. Here you go.
So
I'm gonna
there
give
were
it to you.
there were things that we found out after we recorded the last episode of Oblivion Song.
No spoilers for Oblivion Song, by the way.
Right,
If you're
none,
listening to this,
none.
we are not going to spoil Oblivion Song.
Right. No, we're nothing pertaining to the story. However, we found out through the Skybound solicits. So Skybound will release the solicits for every month, basically showing like the solicits for February. They
2 months ahead?
Yeah, they typically do it 2 months ahead. So 3 months ahead.
Wow.
So in January, April came out. So in December, we noticed that the March solicits didn't have Oblivion Song.
25.
Yeah, issue 25 in there. They have the trade paperback, the next trade paperback of Oblivion Song, but not the next issue. So we were like, oh, okay. And then didn't really think anything of it. Then the solicits for April came out, and there's nothing there. Mm-hmm. There's, again, no Oblivion Song.
So we now have confirmed 2 months without Oblivion Song.
And issue 24 ends a trade.
Mm-hmm. And it's the fourth trade.
And it's the fourth trade. So, like,
And Kirkman usually does a big thing with 25,
Yeah.
50, 75, 100. And it's like...
So
by the time we all meet again, we will have the answer to this question.
So
do you
we-
want to give any thoughts? Again,
Yes.
no spoilers.
Right. So, just I
think it's a hiatus.
yeah, I think it's going to be a hiatus.
I think...
Agreed.
They did 2 years straight, 24 issues, 2 years
No delays.
with no delays. Every single month it's been on time. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that now they're going to be taking some time off, which
Yeah.
I'm okay with. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
it
we
sucks.
want it constantly, but it's one of those things where it's like you see this happening with Die. You see it happening with Saga. You know what I mean? Like, take a break, get caught up. Do what you need to do, and then come back stronger than ever. You know what I mean?
Saga's fucking breaks are a little excessive, though.
I mean, this is the first time they've done it. It's not like something they do often.
What I'm
but
saying is, it's
this
how
year
long
and a
has it
half
been?
or whatever.
Yeah, dude, come on.
I know it's
But what's
crazy.
funny is that the brief time that we did talk to Kirkman at New York Comic Con, we did bring up Oblivion Song, and like we were joking about like what issue he was writing, and I was like, and at the time issue 19 had just came out, and I'm like, I don't know, like 24, and he just like started laughing, and he's like, yeah, 24, and we didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
We didn't know if that was like, oh, that means he's on like 30,
Or
that
it means he's not even close to
or he's not-
24.
yeah, so we didn't know what that meant. We still don't know what it means, so it's like.
Well, I think we know that. That's funny because that's where I stopped writing to
I
take
think
a break.
That's what it is, yeah.
So, do you think that? I mean, it's public knowledge that the movie is in the works, or at least that it's been announced that they're working on a movie. Do you think that we will get more movie news before the return of Oblivion Song, including in the back of this issue?
No, I don't. Do you think Chris Pratt will announce that he's playing?
He has to be. But I don't think we will get any movie news by the time it returns. No.
So you think the return will be less than 6 months? I'm hoping they say at the end of this issue.
I'm hoping. I'm expecting them to say, "See you in the fall." No specific date.
Yeah.
Not even in a specific month. Maybe a month. Definitely not a date. Ooh, I hit the mic. Definitely not the date.
Yeah.
Maybe the month, but I'm thinking it's just going to be "See you in the fall."
Yeah. I think I have to agree. As much as it'd be cool to be like, okay, it comes out in around San Diego Comic-Con. You know what I mean? Like around like that news cycle. But yeah, it's probably gonna be the fall. Mm-hmm. Man.
I just want to entertain the other possibility that it's ending with issue 24.
Okay. Impossible.
So he is starting a new comic book called Firepower that comes out in April. The only reason why we're thinking that it doesn't end with 24 is there are so many other things to cover.
Yeah,
in this world.
I mean, unless this is like a triple-sized issue, you know what I mean? And
Which
even
is 28 pages.
Is it?
It says in the solicits.
Wait, is that a normal?
Wait, is that
issue? Or is it a double-sized issue?
Wait, is it 28 pages?
I don't know.
Do they count front and back, or is it normally 13 pages?
They count front and back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, like one.
Just like if you were to buy single issues or a page from Ottley, that's not 2 pages. You know what I mean? It's one side.
One side, yeah.
So yeah, I'd be curious.
It's not even a like. Why are we talking about it? It's impossible.
Yeah, it's not ending
unless.
And it's.
I mean,
as far as we know, the sales have been really good too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we just did a interview with a guest.
We just had a guest on the show, which you'll be hearing shortly.
So I described us as being fire ants, and where we pick apart everything and leave nothing but bones. Like, we could just be picking apart every little fucking aspect of Oblivion Song, expecting everything to be a thread. But if you think about, like, the big picture, not spoiling anything, they could, if they really just simplify everything and just be like, this thing that you had a question about, it's this and this and this.
But there's other things that he has said that you're going to find out more about this. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just can't see it. I can't see it ending.
I'm trying to convince myself that it's going to happen, but it's, guys,
it's actually
it's not
shorter.
going to fucking happen.
So I'm looking at every issue coming out this month, like Birthright, Hardcore,
So it's a
Heart
normal.
Attack,
So it's probably a normal
30,
Oblivion Song.
They're all 32 pages, and Oblivion Song is 28 pages, so it's actually shorter than most.
Well, it might be a normal Oblivion Song issue. It just might be.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Interesting, man. I don't know.
I'm really curious. But he said in the letters column, like, what did he say? He made mention, like,
big stuff was coming or something.
That issue 25 was coming, and we're going to have to time some cool stuff around that.
Exactly.
That's what he said.
That's the thing. So maybe it's not so much a hiatus. Maybe it's, hey, we're not going to release 25 until the summer because that's when we're announcing something.
For the movie.
That's what it could be. That's what it could be. It's crazy, though.
And the variant cover is going to be
him.
A live-action Chris Pratt on the
cover.
poster
of the movie.
Have they ever... No, I guess they wouldn't because they've never really had to before, but timed a comic release around the announcement of something else?
Oh, I'm sure they have. Like,
indeed.
You mean like comics? Like, has a comic book ever done that?
Like, no, I mean Kirkman.
Oh, I don't think he's ever had to, really.
I don't think so. It's not like it's been like, oh, Walking Dead All Out War ties in with the show.
Yeah.
Or
I'm not saying physically ties into, but like you're saying that they're gonna wait to release issue 25 because there's huge news with the movie.
Yeah, I don't know. The only reason I'm saying that is because he said.
Kirkman said. Kirkman said.
Who said it?
Kirkman.
Oh, okay.
He said issue 25 is coming soon. We'll have to time some cool things around that.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. So we'll know. I guess the good thing about you not being able to record right away with that issue, TJ, is that we'll have plenty of time for everybody to write in. Because normally we record like the night or the night after the issue comes out, and not everybody has gotten a chance to read. So if you're hearing this, and I'm sure TJ will spread the word online, like we definitely want to hear your thoughts on what happened in that issue and what the big news is.
And if you're not caught up on Oblivion Song, you should catch up. We actually talked to our guest a little bit about that too.
Yep, we do. Speaking of, actually, that would be a good segue.
Segue. I just hit it.
That poor guy.
Again.
Poor guy.
Poor man.
So yeah, we actually got to talk with Pete Imbesi from the Comics Pals podcast, and they do a great show over on YouTube. And he actually did an interview with Kirkman that we talked all about, actually, after New York Comic Con. And it was great. He reached out and said, if we'd ever like to have him on the show. And so it was great to have him on. And I don't know, I thought it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
We talked for a while and talked all about how he got into Invincible. We talked a good amount about the animated series, but it wasn't just our normal ramble. I mean, I feel like we actually got into some good stuff. So really hope you enjoy the chat we have, and we'll be back after that to talk all about issues 97 to 102 for our Invincible reread. All right, so here we are. Welcome to the show, Pete Imbesi. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where people can find you?
Yeah, hey, first of all, thanks for having me, guys. So I am Pete Imbesi. I'm a podcaster and content creator. You might know me from my work with the Comics Pals, my weekly comic book podcast, which I was cited on the show once for one of my interviews that we did over on our YouTube channel. So if you guys want to go check out my talk with Kirkman, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later, you can go check that out over there. But aside from that, I also am the multimedia editor for lootpots.com, which is a Nintendo fan site where I host the weekly Nintendo podcast, the Podscast, as well as our Patreon exclusive show After Dark. And if you want to connect with me, I'm at loud_Pete on Twitter and Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
You're doing cool shit. You're doing cool shit.
Thank you so much.
And a lot of shit, too.
Yeah.
Like, we have a hard enough time just doing this,
monthly.
Two monthly podcasts.
Yeah, 2 monthly podcasts. We're like, fuck, when are we going to do this?
Yeah, I keep busy.
No, that's great. Yeah, it's awesome that we actually found out about you through that Kirkman interview, because we were at New York Comic Con, the same New York Comic Con, and then
A listener of ours sent us the link through our Facebook. That's how
for
we
the
found
interview.
it. That was cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess they must have saw it on Reddit or something.
Yeah, no, it was really cool, and I remember because we actually didn't get a chance to chat with Kirkman at that, at New York Comic Con, so it was cool to actually have someone who talked with him that we can actually say, hey, look, we actually got some news.
Yeah, I was glad I was able to give you guys some news that week.
Oh, that's nice, and it was really cool too because you actually got to talk about like.
The live action movie.
The movie, Seth Rogen a little bit, and the differences between both the animated series and the movie.
Yeah. It's a funny story. The way that it kind of like worked out was so random. So I was with my guys at the Comics Pals, and we at New York Comic Con every year we go and do interviews at Artist Alley and everything, and try to connect with different creators. And we were waiting to interview Declan Shalvey. Who's an artist, who's great.
Yeah.
And I guess him and Robert are friendly, and Robert was there to give him a book that he had said he was going to loan him or something.
Oh, yeah.
And I had taken 5. I had just went and actually talked to Ryan and Ottley, and was like chatting with him because I've interviewed him a few times.
Which
and
is funny, yeah. I actually we saw that interview years ago too, because that was a couple years old, right? Yeah,
I've interviewed him 3 or 4 times now.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, I think 2 or maybe just twice with the Comics Pals. I did it once with an older outlet, but that you can't find that interview anymore.
Okay, got it. Yeah, it was right after Spider-Man. You were talking all about Invincible stuff then.
Okay,
too.
yeah.
So I remember us talking about that interview years ago. But
yeah, that was probably in, I guess, 2018, maybe 2017.
Yeah,
it was a couple years ago. So I had chatted with him, and I was trying to get him to sit down with me again, but he was too busy. And so I went back and was like, all right, I'm going to take a 5. And I was sitting down, and one of my guys who was there prepping for the interview runs over, and he's like, man, that's Kirkman over there. He's like, you got to go talk to him. So I go up, I introduced myself. He was really nice.
He was just standing there?
Yeah, he had been talking to Declan, and as soon as they were done and he went to walk away, I kind of just saddled up to him and was like, hi, I'm Pete. Like, please talk to me for a second. And I asked him, I was like, I'm sure you're really busy and you don't have time to chat with me today, but like, I would love to interview you sometime, or maybe get on a Skype call or something, whatever, you could do. You're my favorite writer, and I'd really love to get to pick your brain sometime. And he pulls out his phone, and I'm thinking he's going to give me, contact info or something or whatever. And he's like, I got 10 minutes right now. He's like, can you make that work? And I was like, I can make that work.
That's awesome.
Kirkman is so good to his fans. It's crazy. It's crazy how good. What's even crazier though is that you did that interview on the fly.
Yeah, I had no
You had nothing
preparation.
That's crazy.
It was just right off the top of my head. Yeah,
watching the interview, it looked like you prepared for it. You did really well for it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing interviews for a long time. Like, I studied journalism in college, so I have that kind of background. So like generally I do prep for my interviews, but with Kirkman, you know, like for somebody I'm so familiar with, it was just like, okay, I can chat with him. Like, what are the things I want to know the answers to? You know, like there you go. You know, that was all I really had to do.
Have you talked to him before? Have you had like a formal sit down conversation with him anytime before that one?
I had never had a formal conversation with him before. I met him once as a fan before I was in press or anything when I was a few years younger. And oh my God, it must have been like 2012. And I went to go see a Skybound panel, and he was at the back talking to a couple of, I guess friends of his or whatever. And I went and chatted with him for a few minutes then and was kind of like, hey, I really hate to bother you, but will you please sign my Invincible 15? And he was super nice about it, you know, and was like very, very, like you said, man, like he's really good to his fans. And that's something that I really admire about the guy because, I mean, at this point, like he's a multi-millionaire celebrity. Like it would be real easy for him to.
He doesn't even act like it.
No, he doesn't.
No. Yeah.
It was funny. I remember, like, we just got to go up to his signing. And it was funny because all three of us got to go up at the same time, and he's sitting there at the table, and we get up there and we just like kind of blank for a second. And I remember just being like, I got nothing. You know what I mean? Like, I just remember thinking,
he was like making fun of us. He's like, "You're the Invincible podcast. You don't have more questions for me?" And we were like, "Oh."
It was just so much to finally get to that moment that we just kind of blanked out a little bit. But we warmed up and we were able to talk a bit. But
so was that before or after he had been on the show?
That was
after.
Okay. It's cool that he remembered you guys.
That was our first time actually meeting him in person because before it was when he was
your first time.
Well, yeah.
Oh, hey TJ, hey.
Yeah. He did ask where Bill and I
Yeah,
was.
he did say where Bill and Ryan.
Yeah,
because I had met him the year before I went to New York without them.
Yeah.
With another friend of mine.
Yeah.
I met him.
But otherwise, like we're saying, just him agreeing to be on our podcast, like spur of the moment, and then giving us like over an hour was incredible. So
right. How did you guys connect with him? Was it because you had met him at Comic-Con prior, or
no? I mean, no. We hadn't met. He had known who we were because we had been doing the podcast for a couple years. I reached out to some Skybound, marketing people and stuff like that. But otherwise, it was just asking. And then he saw that we were recording for the episode, and then he reached out on Twitter and was like, "Hey, when are you guys recording?"
He reached out to us the day that the final issue came out.
Yeah.
And he was like, "So when are you guys recording your next podcast?"
And we're like, "Tomorrow."
I saw it on Twitter, and it was like 10:30 at night, and I'm like, I texted like the two of them, and then me and Bill were freaking out because Ryan was sleeping, and we were trying to like wake up Ryan to respond
wake up.
On Twitter.
For real. And I couldn't go back to sleep. That was man,
we were all up the entire
we were
night.
so jazzed. It was great.
Yeah. Oh my God.
How were you introduced to Kirkman's work?
So I got turned on to him. It's funny because I was a really big fan of Ultimate Marvel when I was a teenager. Yeah. So I actually read his Ultimate X-Men run before I knew that was him.
Yeah.
Just because it was like when I was younger, I wasn't really like following creators. I was following characters that I liked, and that was the first time I'd ever been exposed to his stuff. But when I really got into his work was right a few months after the first season of The Walking Dead had come out, and there was kind of like some buzz around it, but it was before it really like blew up,
Yeah.
And I watched the first season on Netflix or whatever and was like, oh, this is really cool. And was like, oh, this is based on a comic that has like, 100 issues at this point or whatever it was at the time. And I was like, I'm gonna jump in and give it a shot. Because at that point I was really just kind of mostly a Marvel guy, but I was starting to get into more like indie stuff and, like stuff that was more in Image's wheelhouse. So I decided I wanted to give it a go. And I remember the first night that I started reading, I was getting the digitals, and I think I must have read like the first like 20 something in like a night or two, and was just like, this is amazing. And after I'd gotten into Walking Dead and I was like trying to read more about him and everything, I was like, oh, Invincible, like let's check that out. And it's funny because I remember I read the first, probably the first arc, the first like 6 or so issues and was like, yeah, this is pretty good. Like, I like this. I'm going to keep reading it. And I sat down the next night to read more of it and got through to the end of the, like the stuff when you get the first reveal about Omni-Man.
Yeah.
And like, oh man, this is next level. This is incredible.
I feel like that's most people's take on it. That was
Just
ours
get
too.
to that.
Yeah.
That's even Kirkman's take on it. Like even he knows.
Which I don't want to get too sidetracked or anything, but I'm so curious about how they're going to remedy that in the animated series. Because they're not going to spend 3 episodes without getting to
one.
that.
We have one. We've talked about it.
I know.
Yeah.
I think you could do the first 12 issues as one
episode.
and like maybe you pepper in some of the other stuff as like a flashback or something and whatever. Like I think there's a way that you can make the end of the first episode that moment, and
I think
then
the end of the first episode, in my opinion, will be Omni-Man killing the Guardians.
Yeah.
And then the end of the second episode will be
11-12, the fight.
maybe.
Ooh, we'll see.
maybe. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. But anyways, it's crazy to like the first like us getting into comics, and I remember when we were first getting into them. I know Bill, you started reading Walking Dead and everything like that, and I grew up X-Men, Cyclops. I loved those characters, and so I decided I'm going to start collecting from the entire series of Ultimate X-Men. So that's what I did too, and I had no idea. You know what I mean? It's still funny because to this day I still haven't gone back and read. I don't know whether or not he'd want me to, Kirkman's original Ultimate X-Men stuff. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I remember it was like the Phoenix stuff, and there's some Nightcrawler. I don't remember a lot of it, but
I haven't read it since I was like 17. Probably.
I know, right? I'd be really curious to go back and reread all that. But he also did Marvel Zombies around that time too, during his Marvel.
Yes.
Stint. And that was a big deal at the time.
Yeah, he did like the 3rd volume, or was the first one him?
No, the first one.
Did he do the first 2?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
He did start it? Really?
Yeah.
I thought he did like the 2nd or the 3rd.
I thought did one. I'm looking at it.
He did the first
But
one.
he
okay.
I don't know if he it just happens to be right there. But I don't remember whether or not he did 2. Definitely didn't do 3 and on. Yeah.
I was under the impression he did like the 2nd or 3rd one as well. I didn't realize he did the first one. That's cool.
That does say his name, right, TJ?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the best one, so that makes sense.
Yeah, it really is. So,
I remember when we watched your interview for the first time, like it seemed like the first time that Kirkman gave any like real interesting information about the movie other than like, yeah, it's happening. Oh yeah, Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg and blah blah blah. Like the way that I like to think of us 3, like, Ryan and TJ and myself, is like fire ants, where like if a dead bird falls on the ground, like we like pick it apart and then when we scatter there's just bones left.
So Seth Rogen said he's writing the 3rd draft.
Yeah. Let's take 4 hours out of our day and just talk about that and what it could mean. So when he said, like, when he described what the movie was, I felt like really good about it. Like I felt I was like, oh, that's such a like satisfying realistic way for a creator to be like, yeah, it's not going to be like the fucking cartoon. Like it's not going to be like that.
Like he was telling you, like, yeah, the cartoon's great because we can go to the moon and stuff like that. The movie, might have to be a little bit more grounded.
Yeah, when he said the word distilled, like you take everything and just distill it to like what the core is, like I was like, oh yeah,
it's like that's how you make it work.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, and I think the thing that's kind of fun about it too is, and it's something that we argue about on my show a lot, where is it better to have a movie that is like really, really trying to just tell the story again in a new medium, or is it better to capture the essence and do something new? And I feel like the fact that we have both the live action movie and the cartoon, we can kind of have our cake and eat it too. Like we can get the cartoon, which will probably just be beat for beat the comic with some of the fat trimmed, and the movie's gonna have to be something different because especially if there's only one.
Yeah.
Like where do you tell the first chapter of that story?
I mean, is it a sci-fi movie? Is it a movie about family on Earth? Like it can go.
Is it satire? Is it like a Superman satire? Like is it like I don't mean satire like scary movie, but like you know what I mean? Does it like
there's entire arcs where it's sci-fi, then there's entire arcs where it's like here's the Justice League, and you know what I mean? Like it's it changes so much.
The thing that I go ahead, TJ. Captain Interrupter.
You fucking. It's about a father and son.
Yeah, I agree.
Overall, from beginning to end,
it is that family
it's a
story.
father and son.
Yeah, but if it's a movie and it's distilled down to like, I feel like they would have to make it about the tropes You know what I mean? Like,
and they have to go into it with an expectation of how many films it's going to be, you know, because you can't do it in one. So I think, to your point, TJ, like doing it about just focusing on the relationship between Mark and Omni-Man like makes a lot of sense. But in the same breath, like after the fight, he's gone for so long.
It's not what it is.
Almost can't be what it's about. So I think if anything, it'll probably be about their falling out and the ramifications of that, and then him trying to like fill his father's shoes, you know, and have it be more about kind of legacy, you know, and living in Nolan's shadow, and how do you measure up to the greatest hero in the world, you know? And then maybe the next film is about, oh, we find out he's still out there.
Yeah. And what does that mean now? You know, after living up to all of that, you know?
Now that you're the new sheriff in town.
Yeah, right.
It's just so interesting to think about, like, when you think of a remake or like taking your like a comic and turning it into a movie, you want it to be verbatim, right? And then think about the things that we've gotten that were that we hated, i.e. the Disney remakes, right? Like Beauty and the Beast.
I don't mind those.
And Aladdin. Like they were the
abnormal.
same movie, but dude, the newest Mulan trailer, I was like, this looks like Mulan, but it looks like it's a period war movie, and it looks fucking awesome. Like they're changing it in all the right ways.
Well, and I think I don't know, because it's tough. Because I think like you compare it to something like Walking Dead or like even the MCU, and I think the reason that those adaptions are successful is because they capture the spirit of what makes the source material good. And I know, like, you know, I fell off Walking Dead a while ago now, but I know I think I would have fallen off much earlier if it was just the same beats over and over.
Exactly.
You know, because I don't need to have that story retold to me. I've read it more than once, you know? And I feel the same way about Invincible. Like, I want the cartoon to be truer to the books, but I feel like for the film, like, take the liberties that you need to in the same way that something like Scott Pilgrim did, where it's like, get the point across, you know? Like, get what makes that universe and the way that, you know, Kirkman approaches superheroes. Like, that's what you need to get across, you know?
You know what a great example of capturing the spirit is in the, I forget what season it was in The Walking Dead, but when they, spoiler alert, everyone, if you haven't watched The Walking Dead, Sophie. Remember when Sophie was in the barn the entire time?
Yes.
And she walks out, and everyone's just kind of standing there like, oh my god, she was missing the whole time.
That was great.
That wasn't in the comic, but that was like Kirkman. That was like a Kirkman-esque moment. That was the spirit that made The Walking Dead. If the show would have continued having moments like that were like, oh my god. So if Invincible does that, it's completely different. Like, it's completely different, like, with the character, but it fucking worked. Like, I think we all agree. We're like, that's the best thing we've seen on this show, and it's completely different from the comic.
Yeah, because I don't think it's about, like, recreating what makes the book special, you know? Because it's not going to be a one-for-one. It's a different medium, and, like, you have to tell the story differently.
Yeah. Now, if the animated series is going to be a little bit closer one-for-one, I'm sure it'll have differences, but if that is going to be a little bit closer, what, and it goes on and tells the entire story, what are you looking forward to most?
I think the thing I'm looking forward to the most is being able to talk about Invincible outside of with the one friend I have who likes it, and with you guys right now, because I love the Walking Dead comic, and I think at least the first 5 seasons of the show are really good. And I you know, stand by it and everything, but I've always thought that Invincible was better. I've always thought that it's Kirkman's best work, and the fact that, like, Walking Dead is the thing that hit, and that's what he's known for, and Invincible is always kind of like, oh, that's that other book that he did, right? That's, like, in the shadow. I want it to have its opportunity to connect with new readers in the same way that, like, The Boys did when that came out, you know? And then all of a sudden the volumes of the book are selling like crazy, and people are aware of it in a way they weren't before. And I want that for Invincible, especially because now that the book's over, it can't be influenced.
Which
you know,
is
like,
huge.
The book is what it is, and it's great, and it's there for you if you want to go get into it. And, like, yeah, maybe this, like, gets Kirkman thinking about the book again. Maybe him and Ottley reunite and do, like, a post book or something like that, I'd be down. But even if we never get another book, I love the idea that Invincible can live on and find new people to connect with it, because I think, especially given how hard it is to get into mainstream comics after watching like an MCU movie, Invincible doesn't have that problem. Like, it's a 1-for-1 in the same way that Walking Dead was. And that was why that book's numbers skyrocketed when the show became a thing.
Yeah. As far as what about as far as like moments,
Like beats
in the comic?
Other than dinosaurs, because that's obvious. That you wanna see
I don't know if that's obvious.
It's the obvious answer.
I think the Viltrumite War is probably where I go, because I think there's so much great work done there artistically, but there's a lot of like skipping around, you know, like there's a lot of minutia that like the book doesn't always get. Like, usually it gets into the minutia, but I feel like with the war there's kind of a lot of like, it's almost like snapshots of the events, you know. And I would love to see like some of those battles played out.
Could you imagine?
Time passes a lot quicker during the Viltrumite War. I mean, obviously, you know, he comes back and a lot's changed with Eve, but otherwise, you know, you're, you know, with Mark being in a coma, and, you know, the whole thing.
I mean, it's literally one issue of a comic, but even like just the action parts were a couple panels at a time. So yeah, man, could you imagine that stretched out? Like, if there were to be something that would be stretched,
being one hour episode of the animated series.
Oh my god,
just issue 75,
or like or like any of the big battles, you know, like the whole like I don't know about you guys, but I remember the moment that like sticks out to me the most in the book are two actually are the first time that Oliver kills someone when he goes through the twins, and when Eve loses her leg. Thinking that I was like, oh my god, she's dead. Like, she's dead.
She was pregnant, like super pregnant then. Yeah. So we're like, oh fuck.
And you know, knowing what we know about all the alternate marks and everything, I was like, oh no. And I remember reading that issue and like putting I was reading it on my phone at the time. And I remember putting it down and just being like, I need to go have a glass of water. I need a sandwich before I get back to like, I can't see what happens right now. So I think like some of those moments, I'd like to see how do you adapt them and how do you make them have the same impact? Because like, I think so much of why those moments work is like Ottley's art and the way it's paced, where like you see something happen and then you turn the page and it's that, you know, I want to have those moments again, and I want to experience them with other people too, because it's so hard to get someone to read Invincible, because it's like, do you want to read this book that has 130 or what is it, 144 issues? Yeah. And the answer most people give are, oh, it's like such a commitment. I don't know, you know. Or they get one volume and they're like, I really liked it, and then I never read more. Whereas if it's a show, it's so much easier to get people to watch something than to read something. And then if they like the show, then I can be like, here's the stack of books.
Yeah, right.
Plus the comic is like, it's almost like if someone doesn't read comics, you have to stay behind them with a stick and poke them to like finish the first 8. You know, you're like, keep going, keep going.
Like you're really close to something really cool.
Just
keep going.
Just keep going.
Trust me. And then when they do, they're happy they did.
And then you can back away and you can go live your life.
Just
and
do it
they'll read it.
Yeah. By that point.
Yeah.
That's definitely like, I think the book's biggest problem is that it has a slow start, and like getting someone to read something that's kind of commitment is already an uphill battle.
Right.
And then like if they read the first 6 and they're like, yeah, this is okay.
Yeah, but like you said though, I mean, for what like Captain America has done with MCU, like where do people start with that? You know what I mean? Like, is it any easier? Is it? I mean, it's at least someone has an issue 1. At least you can go to Barnes and Noble and find the beginning of Invincible.
And it's a straight line, right?
Exactly.
Like it's not like you have to jump in and realize, oh, like 616 Cap is totally different than the Cap that I know, and he knows all these people that I don't know, and what's going on, and what's this reference to editorial from something I've never read, and all that kind of stuff that really is just like a brick wall that you don't have that problem with Invincible. It's more just like commit to 12 issues.
Yeah, right.
Like, get that far in, and like that moment doesn't do it for you, then like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Bounce out.
Here's something that you touched on for a minute, and we actually haven't really talked about. But in your interview with Ryan Ottley, he mentioned that he had a 2-year contract with Marvel and that he doesn't know whether or not, like he said, oh yeah, maybe I'll stick with them or whatnot. I just looked it up. That's Amazing Spider-Man 1 came out. It would be
like
2
April,
years in
right?
July.
July.
So July
Okay.
would be 2 years since Amazing Spider-Man 1. You
Well,
know?
I don't know. It
Invincible
depends,
ended
'cause
2 years ago.
It was announced. It was announced a
Tell us
month.
about it.
It was announced in like March or April that he was doing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like it'd be sooner.
I thought I looked it up and it was the first issue came out in July.
Yeah,
So
first
published
issue,
July. Oh yeah, yeah.
it was.
That's what I mean. So he, you know,
So he probably would have started working like
yeah.
Yeah.
in June, maybe.
He's gonna stay though. I think.
Yeah.
I don't
so
know.
That, I mean, we would.
I think he's gonna stay.
I mean,
He can
could-
always do
I
his
could see
own
him doing
stuff.
another. I could see him signing another 1 or 2 year contract, but he did
Yeah.
say that he'd be down for doing more with Kirkman or down for like. Is there something else you would like to see him do, or any guesses?
I really want to see him work on another independent book.
Yeah.
Because like Spider-Man is my, I don't know if you guys can see, I've got a little Spider-Man toy on my headphones
nice.
here. I love Spider-Man. Like Spider-Man is my original favorite superhero before, Invincible came along. And I was so excited for him to work on Spider-Man, but I just hit a point where I'm just like, I don't really like reading monthly superhero books. Like most big 2 superhero books on a month to month just don't hold my attention. Like I'm loving what's going on in X-Men right now.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because that feels like bigger. It feels like it's going towards something. It's not just like, what's Peter Parker up to for the 900th time, you know? Like I would rather read something like Chip Zdarsky did, like Life Story last year, where it's like, oh, this is like a concise 6-issue story, about Spider-Man. I would have rather seen Ottley work on something like that than a monthly book. So to me, if he's gonna keep working with Marvel, that's tight. But I want to see him do more like graphic novel style stuff, or stuff that is like a intended miniseries that he could really like dig in and work on those 6 issues, or go back to a monthly like Image book, or at any of the other smaller publishers that are out there, and do something that is creator owned, because I want to see him like be challenged a little bit more, because like I feel like with Spider-Man, not to denigrate any of the work that he's been doing, but he even said in my interview where he's like, well, it's pretty much just Mark and Eve, it's the same kind of thing. And
instead of blood, it's webs.
right, instead of intestines, it's webs.
Exactly, yeah.
And I'd love to see him do something that like really pushes him in the same way that Invincible did, when he was working on it then, because as great as the stuff he's doing on Spider-Man is, like, it doesn't feel as like landmark, as the stuff that, because he's my favorite artist, and it's because of Invincible and the amazing work that he's done there. And I want to see him, have to draw more crazy space creatures, or like whatever. It doesn't have to be sci-fi. You could go do fantasy. Like, I just want him to be doing more wild and weird stuff.
I agree. I want that too. I want him to do creator-owned stuff. I want him to do like bloody stuff, like Invincible, things like that. But if I were Ottley, like, you could do creator-owned stuff for the rest of your life. You're working for Marvel right now. If I were Ottley, I'd resign with Marvel in a second.
Take the money, man.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know how the money works and all that other stuff, and how, like, Image pays to Marvel. I'm sure it's different, obviously, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I feel like we don't know Ottley personally, but, through his work and through hearing him speak and talk, and just, like, the passion in which he draws, like, you could almost see that he obviously had a little bit more freedom and control over Invincible. You know what I mean? Because he was like, and I feel like working, it's like finding your dream job and then being like, I kind of liked the girl that I was dating back there maybe a little bit more. I don't know why I get that feeling.
I don't, because when he was on, all he talks about is how much he loved Spider-Man growing up, and this is his dream to be on Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I don't.
It's because they pay
for
his
2
mortgage
years now, right?
Yeah, it's because they pay his mortgage. So he's like, I love Spider-Man.
It's a bummer that it probably isn't allowed when being in a contract with Marvel, but especially because he is doing the off and on again. You know what I mean? Yeah, he's doing the 6-issue or 6 month or whatever on, 6 month off. It's a shame that he couldn't be doing other stuff, indie stuff in the off.
I think it's because he takes his time. Like Invincible used to get delayed a lot, and that's because like he really puts in the extra mile, you know? And I think for like a book like The Amazing Spider-Man, like he's not like made for a book like that, I don't think.
Yeah.
And again, it's not that the work isn't great. It's just like I think I'd rather see something where he's like more, you know, like more involved in the creative process too.
100%.
You know,
100%.
Because like Kirkman always talks about how like his artists are really like collaborators, you know, and like they have agency over how the story plays out in a way that like he probably doesn't on a book like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So you know, I don't know. I just it's great to see him on like one of the 3 biggest comics in the world. It's great to see him getting that level of attention. Like, and I'm stoked about it. But after 2 years, I would kind of like to see him do something else now.
Yeah. Agreed.
Favorite character?
Oh.
I
mean,
always gotta ask.
I feel so trite saying so, but it's like it's Mark and Eve, you know, like their dynamic and Mark as a character are what like really drew me into Invincible, you know, is that Mark is he's like a pretty complex hero, you know. There's a lot of things that he does and a lot of arcs where like he's doing things that are really questionable and he goes down some really crazy paths mentally and emotionally, and that is what I like about him. You know, he's challenging a little bit. Like he's not just a you know, I think a lot of people compare him to Superman because of their power set, but it's like he's far more of a Peter Parker, you know, like he's kind of a screw up at heart.
Definitely. As far as Invincible getting bigger, we talked about it a little bit and kind of becoming a little bit more mainstream. Any hopes for stuff other than the movie and show, like any merch or anything like that you want to see? Like you want to go into Hot Topic and see Invincible stuff everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a weird spot with that because I'd like there to be more, but probably not a lot more.
Yeah.
You know, because like I have almost every piece of Invincible merch that's ever been made. Like have you guys ever seen the statue? That there's only you have one? I have one of them too.
Yeah, it's great.
And I've got the Eve one
he's
as
right
well.
He's right next to Eve.
Yeah, I got the same too, and like the Eve one's a lot less nice, but
the price is a lot nicer. But...
That's for sure. So like I would like to see more stuff like that. Like I'd love for when I go to New York Comic-Con and I go to the Image booth and I'm like, do you have any new Invincible stuff? And they're like, no, we don't.
Yeah.
I would love for there to be stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I'd love for there to be more shirts, a few more things, but I don't need it to be commercialized to the level that like Walking Dead is, where there's like an Invincible cookie jar or whatever. Like I don't need all that.
Nice.
You know?
It's nice to be able to get everything. Once it reaches the point in which you cannot possibly have everything that's Walking Dead branded. You know what I mean? It's moved into the stratosphere of just it's unattainable. You know,
or there's stuff you don't even want. Like you know, like there was like I remember I used to get like Loot Crate like years ago, and I remember they gave me like a string of like bar soap that were like ears from Walking Dead, and I was like, who wants Walking Dead soap?
Like Daryl's necklace of ears or something as soap.
As soap. And I was like, yeah, that's where we're going with this? Like, I don't need that. We don't need all that.
But now I want an Invincible cookie jar.
Now you want an Invincible cookie jar.
You know, that's not actually that bad. It's like Science Dog. Like, I don't know. That could be cool.
All right.
But something I've always wanted is, I think I would love to see...
Beast. Or no, it'd be dinosaurs. It'd be like ripping open dinosaurs. Like...
yeah, I love that. That's good. See, all right, you know, maybe there's cookie jars, whole set of them.
Yeah.
I always wanted to see a Telltale Invincible game.
Oh, yes. I know.
And now that it's like, you know, the real Telltale's kind of gone. Like, I don't really know that I want that anymore.
They're kind of gone, but there's
then who's doing Wolf Among Us?
That's what I mean.
Can
they
you
kind
explain
of resurrected them, but it's also you go ahead.
I can explain it.
Yeah.
So when the original Telltale studio went out of business, it went bankrupt. They laid off their entire staff. The branding has been purchased by 2 other people who like bought it and all of the like rights to a bunch of the games that had been in development that weren't finished or weren't started, like Wolf Among Us 2. So. And they were like, oh, we would love to rehire some of the original staff, but there haven't been any significant like creative people that worked on it who have come back to the studio. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get Wolf Among Us 2. I'm stoked about that, but it's not the same creative team, so that gives me pause a little bit.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be, the people that did Walking Dead season 1 are doing Invincible, and if that was the case, yes, I'd be all about that.
Oh my
But
god, season 1 of Walking Dead, Telltale, so good.
Wasn't that was Gary Whitta too, right?
yeah, Gary Whitta worked on that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, your Kirkman interview, you had your KFAF shirt on, huge.
Your
kind
Go
of
For It, Connect
Oh,
For.
you guys are kind of funny fans?
Oh, huge.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
hell yeah.
honestly they're
we
the
gotta
reason.
hang out more. You guys
No,
They're the reason why we kind of
that's why
started
we
the podcast.
And
Really?
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
my God.
I mean,
Yeah,
Podcast
man.
Beyond back in the day, and then Greg's obviously a
Same here.
huge Invincible fan, and you've seen his freak out video finding out about the news that
the
Invincible was
live
being
action.
turned into a movie.
Yeah.
That was me in the chat being like, no, seriously, it's real. Look this up, and
This is amazing.
it was great. It was great. But
Oh man, that's crazy. Small world.
oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
But speaking of that actually ties in nicely. I want to hear a little bit more before we wrap up. I want to hear a little bit more about Comics Pals and the kind of stuff you guys do.
Yeah, sure. So the Comics Pals is a group I co-founded in 2016. So we're coming up on our 4th year here, and our main show is the Comics Pals. It's a weekly comic book podcast where we talk about news and culture around the comic book industry, and we often lately we've been doing lots of reviews. That wasn't something we did historically, but we've been real into the X-Men stuff, so we've been reviewing that on the show. Whenever there's a movie or a big TV show or whatever, we've got our coverage out of that kind of stuff. So it's kind of just anything and everything under the comic book sun. We cover, and we also do a monthly book club where you can we'll tell you in advance. You read the book, come for our discussion, and writing questions, all that kind of stuff. So we do a bunch of different products, and we used to have a video game show. We just did a Watchmen show. So we have a lot of stuff out there, but we're mainly focused on comic stuff again.
And you guys do a lot of interviews too.
Yeah. So like I said, we always go to New York Comic Con, and that was where my Kirkman interview, my Ottley interviews took place. We go to Keystone Comic Con now. We used to go to Wizard World, but that's kind of been on the downslope these last couple of years. So yeah, we try to get to as many conventions in the East Coast kind of area as we can, and make connections and stuff, because we always have creators on the show and do interviews and stuff as well. So that's the best way to make that connection and show them that we're good.
What's Keystone?
So Keystone is Reed Pop, who does New York Comic Con. Keystone is the Philadelphia con that they do.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's fairly new. I think it's only been 2 or 3 years now, but I was there last year for the first time, I think.
Yeah. Good turnout.
Yeah, it was good. It was solid. It's definitely smaller than New York. It's way more way more like a Wizard World. It's kind of more that mid-level where it's not as small as some local comic conventions can be, because they had what's his name, Tom Holland was there, and they had the Weasley twins from Harry Potter, and then the actress who played Ginny was there. So there was a lot of those kind of celebrity pop culture guests, and then the Artist Alley is more mid to small level people.
So kind of like a cross between our Niagara Falls and our Toronto. Not quite Toronto, but a little bit better than Niagara Falls from the sound of it.
Yeah, it's in that mid tier kind of level, and I mean that with absolutely no disrespect.
Oh,
It was a great convention, and I like those smaller cons. New York Comic Con is the show, and I'm about it, but
That was way too much, man.
Yeah.
That was so
it's a
much.
lot. And I thrive on it. I do well in that environment because I'm there to work, and I'm there to have fun, and it's a good time. But they're exhausting. Whereas something like Keystone is way more low key, and it's nice because I live in Philadelphia, so it's can take an Uber over there instead of driving and parking, and it's way more relaxed, and I appreciate that about it. But you don't run into Robert Kirkman there, so
Yeah.
I love how
straight
they're New York Comic Con, it was too much, and we just confirmed that we're going to be going to San Diego Comic Con this year.
Hey, I mean, it's too much, but at least I know. I just know that I can't do it all. You can't see it all. It's too many people. You just kind of have to focus on what you want to do and just
Do it.
suck it up and do it.
Yeah.
So wait, so you guys aren't going to New York this year, but you are going to San Diego?
New York
Right.
is questionable.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're doing San Diego, but we're up in the air for New York.
Odds are minimum you'd probably end up going to New York again.
I'd love to go to New York again, but it's going to be tough to do both.
It really depends on how San Diego goes, what kind of
News
we'll get, what kind of
Yeah, because last year we went to New York because Because
were expecting.
We were like,
We were like, this is the year.
Stuff's gonna happen. Like, here we go.
I would have lost
Yeah.
a $500 bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, if because I was that sure that we'd have some sort of news.
Yeah.
Damn.
So
Yeah.
now, and every major convention, we're like, this will be it. So we have to go to this one. So we'll see. It's
And here we
Well,
are
you guys-
going to San Diego.
Yeah.
You guys should definitely go to New York because I'm going to be there and we should hook up.
That's right. That's right. I mean, we've been. No, speaking of, I was going to ask you, Philadelphia. Do you read Oblivion Song?
I haven't read it yet. I
Casey,
own
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
It's in Philly. I didn't know that. I
Yeah.
owned
Oh,
the
it's
first
so
arc,
good.
like the singles, and I just never. So what actually happened was I started picking it up when it was first coming out, and I was just behind or whatever. And the guy at the shop I used to go to when I lived in New Jersey, like, told me the entire plot of the first arc.
Okay.
After I was just like, oh, I haven't read it yet. I'm really looking forward to it. And he's like, oh, well, here's everything that happens. And I was like, well, you just kind of killed my enthusiasm to read this. I guess I'll come back to it. But now, there you go. There's
I
my
mean, I'll tell you what though, it's ending its fourth arc, and
There are 24
there's
issues
so
in.
much more after the first arc. Like, it's funny to think of that as spoilers because so much more happens.
Yeah.
It's
Well, yeah, at the time it was like new.
Oh, no,
so
of
now
course.
it's like, I don't even remember
you
anything.
don't even,
he
yeah,
said.
exactly. So
No.
Just
no,
think
But
of it
you guys do an Oblivion Song show too, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Just think of it like Invincible. You gotta give it more than just 6 issues. You know,
Where would you say where's its issue 12 moment?
it's a little tougher for Oblivion Song because it's
Issue
very,
1? I disagree.
I don't think so.
Go on.
No, I don't think it is like Invincible at all.
It's not.
I think it's
It's not.
consistent from the get go. Like it is a steady climb the entire time.
Exactly.
It's
Alright.
not. It's
But
not like this. Where
Issue 1 isn't like
I mean, issue 1 isn't like holy shit,
No.
but there isn't a holy shit. It is a constant.
Yeah.
grind.
right. Exactly. It's
do you-
not.
It kind of hits the ground running.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I had to put,
Jogging, I'd say.
if I had to put a number to it,
Yeah.
if I had to put a number to it, and give you an issue number, 19. And I know that that's
Holy
high.
crap! Really?
19, absolutely. You know what 19 is.
My thing is, I'll commit either way. I'm
Dude,
a Kirkman guy.
like,
I just got to read it, you know?
If you want to be impressed, like with Lorenzo De Felici's art,
Yeah.
and Annalise
Annalisa Leone.
Annalisa
Annalise
Leone,
Leone.
yep.
So their team is awesome, dude. Like his art is like every issue is just exponentially better than the last, and we just spend so much time, like we did in Invincible, like just picking apart the art and how fucking awesome it is.
Yeah.
And Lorenzo's a really fucking cool dude too. Like I
He
can't
actually
wait to
did
see.
he did our logo, our
Yep.
podcast logo.
Oh, really?
He did it for
Yeah.
free. He just sent it to us. It was
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good guy. And we haven't recorded the beginning of this podcast yet, but we're going to talk a little bit about Oblivion Song, and I'll just say, like, it might be a good time to catch up.
Yes.
It might be a good time to catch up. So,
I'm going to have to catch up and then come on that show. That'll be the move.
hey, there you go.
You're welcome to come on.
So,
Absolutely.
well, thank you so much for doing this. This has been a ton of fun.
Thanks for having me, you guys. Of
course.
Yeah, anytime. I never get to talk Invincible, so
Oh, yeah.
anytime you need a guest, let me know.
Well, just your comic pals. You mentioned that you had one friend that reads Invincible.
It's none of the people on the show.
What are they doing? What are
I
they
know.
doing?
It's because it's not X-Men and none of them go skink or something like that, right? If you're,
No. Well, it's funny because all of the guys are very into indie books and like it's just I have not been able to get any of them to commit because it's such a investment, and they're just like 150, I don't know, 150 issues. I don't know.
Here's what you do.
Yeah.
You make it a reoccurring theme on one of the shows, one of your regular shows, where it's like you check up on them. So like once a month, all they got to do is read one trade. And it's just to get the Invincible Minute or whatever, where it's like, hey guys, so we're going to talk about Invincible for 1 minute.
Did you just make a
just made a
new
segment for
segment?
the show.
the Invinciminute. The Invinciminute.
Yeah, and so they're forced to for the show, so you guys make content out of it. Come on.
My hope is what I really want to do is I want to for our book clubs I want to like get because we made this rule when we started doing our book club where we're like, okay, we're never going to do more than like 12, 18 issues max because that's a lot and we need to be able to prep and blah 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 blah. And like just recently we did Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars and it was like 30 issues. So I'm like, all right, that's enough. Yeah. I'm going to do an Invincible book club as soon as I think as soon as the show comes around, that'll be the perfect like SEO argument of like, everyone's going to be searching Invincible, guys. We got to get our content.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Smart.
And I'm gonna loop them in and be like, all right, cool. We'll do like the first,
Do the first 12.
2 volumes.
The first 12, yeah. The first 12, the first hardcover or the first 3 trades or whatever. It's weird. The first numbering is weird, but 12 is a perfect ending point. The way it ends is like you can keep going if you want, but otherwise you've got it. Like if you're not in.
I almost want to make them go one arc past that because then they'll be like, "Oh, cool! Now we're in the meat of it."
Now we're in the now we're in the superheroing, like the day-to-day like stuff.
The momentum is there, and they won't want to stop.
Okay, yeah, I get it.
And that's like when you really get into like, oh, here's who the team is, and we're gonna start establishing like all the beats that like really matter.
Like the second hardcover, I consider that one to be all the let's throw everything at the wall. Here's a ton of villains. Here's a ton of side stories. Here's a ton of government stuff like aliens. Everything. Let's put everything there.
Here's all this stuff that we'll write out and forget about for like 50 issues, and then all right, it's back.
Yes, because then you're hooked by that. And you need to know the answers. But yeah,
that's one of my favorite things about Kirkman as a writer is how he'll just like drop a thread for like 2 years and be like, oh, by the way, robots, like it's back.
But then he trains you to think like that, and then you find things that aren't actually threads,
like us fire ants, and
obsess over them.
You guys are out here doing God's work,
Thank you so much. But this was great. So we'll hopefully talk with you again soon. I mean, I'm excited to reconnect with a lot of people that we have on the show. Have we after this series is out and everything like that, to get your thoughts then, what I mean? Because we've been for years now, we've been talking about what it's going to be like and what do you think of this and what do you think of this. I want to reconnect with everybody, especially you, about all this.
Have we had a guest on Oblivion Song yet?
No, the only guest we had was someone sitting with us when you sat out.
That's right. So if you catch up,
boom,
you could be number one, numero uno, quite possibly.
How many issues in are we? You said 24 or something like that?
24 is coming out next week.
All right, there we go. All right, gentlemen, I'll get back to you.
That's not bad. Like we were just saying, it's not a lot to.
That's a weekend. I could do that.
That's no problem.
That's not bad. All right, thank you so much. And so it's
thanks again for having me.
Of course, it's at loud_Pete.
Yep, you got me. At @loud_Pete on Twitter and Instagram. At the Comics Pals. At LootPots. LootPots.com. That's everywhere. Go find me.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 And we're back.
What movie? I'm asking my listeners.
What movie?
It's Blade.
It's Blade. Thank you so much, Pete, for that chat. That was a lot of fun. We are now going to go into our rereader with Volume 18.
The Death of Everyone.
Bill is going to do the Blade song.
I feel like it just fits everywhere.
The entirety of this reread.
Do you guys like Bulletproof? Xandal?
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
I like him for this volume and this volume only.
I never liked him.
No.
From the very start.
You got to admit, though, in this volume, he has some fucking awesome story.
I think Kirkman was like, I don't think Bill likes him very much. Let's try to make him a little bit more interesting. Let's Kirkmanify it. Kirkmanify it.
You're saying with later on in the series with what happens to him? Or you're saying right here
I'm
is
talking
when
about
they
this,
make him
like
interesting?
his backstory.
Well, before this,
and,
there really wasn't much about him. I mean,
yeah, he's just like a cocky son of a bitch. You know what I mean? Like
that's his character, though.
Yeah,
he's a little.
I suppose. Didn't the girls
fucking
love
weird.
him
it was
on
weird
the new reader?
Oh, I don't remember.
I really feel like Brittany and Liz loved him.
Really, I feel like they wouldn't because he was like.
It has been so long since the rereader. And we know that because people stopped emailing us in saying that it was the best thing we've ever done.
Right.
It has been so long that I kind of want to listen to them. I kind of want to hear Liz and Brittany and hear their thoughts on this comic because I forgot. I honestly don't even remember whether or not they liked Xandal. Or...
I feel like they couldn't have liked Xandal. Like he hit on Eve and everything.
I remember them specifically talking about this volume and me being like, I almost didn't even remember it because I didn't like it so much. Yeah.
All right.
Not didn't like it, but like
you didn't like this volume?
Yeah.
It's
no. I mean Xandal
I was gonna
stuff.
say.
Yeah, Bulletproof stuff.
It's really only in this issue, which 97. I love this cover.
Great cover.
It's such a cool
fucking cover.
I will say, and we'll get to it. There is one single issue in this volume that I think is terribly underrated in the Invincible series.
Let's try to guess
it. The one
Don't
I think
tell
of?
us.
Because I kind of. All right, let's see. But again, this cover is awesome. Just bulletproof, wearing the Invincible costume, but you could barely tell he's wearing the Invincible costume, and looking at the blood splatter on the wall and in the reflection, it's the bulletproof costume. That's my favorite thing about it.
We talked
blue knee pads, black. Yeah.
We talked about covers
This is one of my
that we
favorites.
wanted to own, and I think this is up there for me.
And it was available for a long time, but it's ridiculously expensive. And if I'm going to spend that much, I'll spend a little bit more and get one that I like better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that issue 63 was available. It was
Remember that?
$3,000.
$3,000.
Like, please, I want it.
Yeah.
It was so good.
So issue 97. Previously, what happened was after the fight in, was it Paris, London,
France,
England? It was where the
Australia.
It was
the moon.
It was in the UK because it's where the burger guy died with the graduation cap.
Oh yeah, the
It's
flax.
when Monax showed up. Yeah. I think it was in the UK somewhere.
Monax, man.
But anyways, where that war was raging, Bulletproof was off fighting, and then he showed up afterwards and told his girlfriend, what's her name? I'm looking at her. It sounds like
Pamela.
Heather.
Samsonite.
Samsonite. Yeah. And he told her, and he's just talking out loud, like, "Hey, Clarice." I don't know. He told her, like, "Hey, he started talking as though he were a superhero," and she's like, "No, your parents are still here," and they heard him and said, "Wait, we saw Tyrone, your twin brother, on TV fighting the aliens. He was the one with the broken arm. What do you mean it was you?" And so he just goes into his flashback, and we get some exposition. He tells them the truth of what's actually happened.
Carla.
Thank you. I said.
Oh,
Clarita.
you were like Clarita. Yeah,
it was hitting me.
Oh wow.
Clarita. So yeah. Previously, we've learned that Xandal's parents don't like him, and they like his brother way more. And so,
and they're not shy about it either. Like they always hated him and liked to, always favored his twin brother.
Yeah. So they grew up very different lives. Tyrone was the scientist, the genius in the family, and Xandal was the artist. And long story short, Tyrone became obsessed with superpowers to the point where he wanted to try and replicate them, and he wanted to use his twin brother, so he drugged him as a guinea pig to see if he can.
Which is fucked
his
up.
experiment works.
Which is fucked up.
Fucked up and brilliant.
I like
writing. You know what I mean?
So Xandal is telling his parents the story, and his brother even said, like, I feel like it's fate that we were twins, because it's like the universe gave me a guinea pig.
Yeah.
Because you're me.
Mm-hmm. He said he remarked that it was almost as if I was born for this purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
genetic double to test on. So the experiment backfired, essentially. It failed somewhat. It gave Xandal the powers that it was supposed to, but in doing so, it actually killed Tyrone. But Xandal couldn't bring himself to tell his parents about it because he knew how much they loved him. And so he went on living like a dual life, pretending to be Tyrone and, for his parents, and then going off and playing
almost
superhero as
almost living a triple life, because he's got Xandal, he's got his brother, and he's got Bulletproof.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
We get to see some of his early days fighting
Vault,
who makes an appearance, and I swear every single tie-in. He is like one of the most well-known, or well-used, or he just gets around. Vault is everywhere, and Green Ghost showing up too.
And it also shows like how they treated the two of them differently. So when he was around as Xandal, they didn't want to have anything to do with him. But then it shows them around with Tyrone. And they're like laughing and having a good time, and they're at the cinema, and in the background, they went and saw Sea Bear versus Grizzly Shark, which is cool because that's Ottley's side project.
And there's even someone walking in with the Grizzly Shark shirt. You know what I mean? Like that's really cool. But yeah, that sucks, man. He's like,
there's a couple Easter eggs.
He's literally seeing what it's like, and he's the same person. He's literally seeing what his parents are treating, how they're treating him differently. But eventually, it got to the point where. It cuts back to modern day. Bill, I can't take you with your beard. Like it's too much.
Combing your fucking beard.
What's wrong with that?
You're creepy.
It's like 3 feet or 3 inches out from your face.
Yeah.
The dad and mom can't handle it. They don't believe him, but then they also are saying that if he's dead, then you murdered him.
Yeah.
You know, it's your fault.
They don't accept that.
Yeah.
He was crazy. That Tyrone was crazy.
Yep. And the mom is freaking out, saying that she's
Gonna tell the police everything.
She's calling the police. You tricked us. You murdered him. And
Carla goes fucking crazy.
Snaps, hits her over the head with a frying pan.
Like the sharp side of the frying pan.
Yeah.
Fucking kills her.
Yeah.
Well, she fucking glenned her.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
She did.
Yeah. It's very reminiscent to what happened to Glenn.
You're right.
With Lucille.
The eye popping out and everything. It's just a bit much. The dad is obviously incredibly upset. He goes after Carla and punches her, begins to choke her, strangling her, attempting to kill her. Xandil grabs his dad's head to pull him off of Carla.
Snaps his neck, pretty much, right?
Severing some sort of something in his
blood
neck.
Flies out of his mouth, too.
Yeah, so that kills his dad. It then shows a quick montage of them throwing the car off a cliff.
So Xandil basically covers it up.
To cover it up. The funeral, with Britt saying, "I'm sorry for your loss." And then him and Carla just sitting at a table, kind of like in shock for what they've done.
After the funeral.
Mm-hmm. Then splash page of Philip Schaff. It's probably Schaff.
It's probably Schaff. That's how I read it.
Yeah. Philip Schaff. The
creator
writer
of Science Dog.
Yep, for Science Dog. And it's him speaking directly to the reader, saying,
Wait, I'm sorry. Can we take a second to read the guy's badge in the background who's helping out? It says booth boy, and then his job is hold Sharpies, etc.
Yes, it's great. So it's Philip saying, heavy-handed, overly dark, hell, out of place even, all the above. I completely agree. It's him basically saying, and this is Kirkman basically speaking through Philip, saying like, yeah, I wanted to shake it up. I wanted to do something shocking. Sometimes I want to just, keep people on their toes. Did I risk alienating the readers? Yeah, of course. I mean, the only thing you can do is, quickly get back to the lighthearted stuff. You know what I mean? It's just kind of an intriguing interlude. I figured if I convinced him that that I wouldn't lose any of the readers.
Couple of cool things on this page. Kid in the background wearing a Captain America shirt. The writer's shirt says "Zombies suck," and one of the Science Dog comic books says "The death of ...
It also has Science Dog holding what's his face by the face and pulling his cheeks instead of pushing his head.
Yeah,
it's the
the
first page.
Oh my God, you're right.
We wouldn't have caught that.
No, we didn't know
because it's not like it's a cover or anything.
Like he was showing straight up showing something that was going to happen.
Meaning the like Dinosaurus pushing Invincible's head and squishing it.
Yeah, instead he's pulling his cheeks.
Yeah.
And then of course it's Mark saying, "That's all very interesting, Mr. Shaft. Did it work?" And then we get the repeating panels that's so popular with this. Not really. But again, it's Kirkman saying, yeah, I did something crazy just to be an intriguing interlude. I wanted to do something fun. And then quickly get back to the lightheartedness. And that's exactly what he did.
And they're at like a Comic-Con. Mm-hmm. There's a guy holding a lightsaber.
Yep, we see a Michonne walking with a Leia.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I love how Mark's saying, I can't believe he didn't remember me. And Eve saying he meets a lot of people. I'm sure if you told him you were invincible, you'd be different. Like, again, it kind of feels like it's talking, like Kirkman's had experience with this kind of stuff.
Mark just looks so pathetic sitting in the box, like
with all his comic books
down, like all of his stuff, and
yeah, because at this point, obviously, he still doesn't have his powers. Nolan is imprisoned on the moon that orbits Telescria, and he was put in there when he got in the fight with Alan over Alan wanting to use the Scourge virus. Alan releases him, says that, I was wrong, I'm sorry. He releases him, leaves them with Debbie. Oliver comes on in. He asks for forgiveness, and they kind of they just really just make up. And Alan says
He
that
releases them, doesn't he?
yeah.
Yeah.
Alan says he has a mission for him and sends him back to Earth. And Oliver stays behind. Then this issue ends with Mark and Eve
Doing it. And Eve is like, she's in a mood. Mm-hmm. She wants it.
Yeah. And Mark realizes suddenly that his powers are back. Baby.
And they're flying in the air.
Yep.
She straddles them.
Mm-hmm.
It is very promiscuous, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I dare I say almost the most promiscuous thing?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Probably in this comic. Like, yeah.
That's the end of the first issue.
Issue 98.
Or going on to issue 98.
First page, fun little interaction between Xandil and Mark. You hate it?
No.
Oh, you're shaking your head.
Another grizzly shark. The license plate.
Oh yeah, G-Shark.
Oh shit! Yeah,
Holy cow.
I never noticed that one. That's a new one for me. Yeah, the cover is
Gosh, he just can't get enough.
This must have been around that time.
Yeah,
must have been peak grizzly sharkness.
So yeah.
So yeah, it's just Xandil and Mark talking above the Pentagon, and they're basically saying, like, Xandil's basically saying, "Hey, I was just wearing the costume to help out Eve.
While you were gone.
You know, I figured it wouldn't be a big deal." And Mark's like, "Yeah, man, I don't care. Keep it. I mean, I mean, most people think I'm Invincible Boy when I wear this one anyways. Like,
Because he's wearing the blue costume instead of the yellow.
yeah, he's like, I don't
Back
care.
to the blue.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Real chill about it.
And then we get fucking awesome Dinosaurus in his badass cape.
Yep. Oh yeah, this is when he has the cape. Because last time we heard of him, Mark was saying, "Yeah, I should probably check up on Dinosaurus. I don't know what he's up to." And so Mark shows up, says, what's been going on? And Dinosaurus said, "Hey, you were powerless. I might have done some things. Maybe if you were here, we could have worked together."
Something.
And Mark's like,
"What have you done?"
Like, what the fuck, man? What are you doing? And he's like, "So I had to act. I mean, I did the data. I ran some numbers." Mark's like, "No, what? Like, seriously, what did you do?" And he's like, "So I realized there was a tipping point, and he basically, he keeps going on, and Mark's like, 'No, what did you do?' And so Mark puts him up against the wall, says, 'Is this Vegas again? Did you do it? What happened? What city?' And Dinosaur says, 'Los Angeles.' And Mark takes off. Dinosaur says, 'You're too late,' and walks into the back room, which I didn't catch until
The clone.
much later during a reread or something like that.
Yep.
That there's a clone in a tank.
I want to go back just to...
Go for it.
When Mark first walks in and starts talking to Dinosaurus. I'm going to bring this up because I'm going to bring it up later, and that's why I want to touch on it now. Dinosaurus says, "You were powerless," because Mark just got his powers back. He said, "You were powerless. It was unclear if your abilities would ever return. If I'd known, if I could have just foreseen, all of this could have been avoided," meaning his powers coming back. I wanted to bring that up because I'm going to bring it up later. I have questions.
Okay.
Questions.
Okay.
We'll bring it up. So moving forward.
You turn the page and bam, it's been a while, but he's back.
Fucking Levy.
Angstrom Levy. We are going to continue this reread and say
Saying it the proper
Angstrom
way.
Levy.
Which is technically the
So
proper
help me
way.
God.
Yeah.
So, Angstrom Levy, I should have just messed it up right there. Fuck, we messed it. Angstrom Levy is kind of demanding to the technicians that he be sent back to have his revenge on Mark. And he basically, through a little bit of exposition here, tells us that he's helped them, like, immensely. He's like, "I've traveled across so many dimensions, making you, like, an incredible race. You now live in, like, a utopia. What more do you want from me?" And they're like...
Well, they're like... He's like, "I want my revenge." He's like, "I've waited long enough."
Oh, yeah.
And
they,
he's like
they
holding...
zap him.
And then they like zap and they were like, "Enough of these tantrums."
Yeah.
Like,
well,
they treat
because
him
they're
like a
the ones that
child.
repaired him, so they must have put things in
But
there
at
to
the same
control
time,
him.
I feel for Angstrom Levy in this point because he's... Like he says, he's like, "I've done fucking everything for you. I've turned you into gods."
Yeah, go ahead.
What? Okay. He says, I've transformed your world, provided you with a population who worship you as gods. He's like, what more do you want from me? So it's like kind of fuck you, technicians, you piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like, why are they treating him like this?
Yeah.
He didn't have to do any of that.
Well, because he owed them.
Yeah, I know, but
that just shows they're villains. They're bad guys.
For sure, but he is too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why I'm like, I feel bad for him. From here on out, like, Angstrom is so good.
I know.
So fucking good.
When they zap him, it's very clearly these pink pulses coming from these orb things, like these implants on his brain.
Yeah.
Are those there when they release him? Like later on when we see him? Are those there forever?
Yeah, I think so.
Or were those just there to control him? Just
I think
just
they're
a little
always
interesting.
There. I think they're always there.
Are they?
I don't think
I don't
they are.
think they
when
are.
He's running,
Ever
when
since he
jogging,
came- yeah,
they're not on his head, I don't think.
Yeah, I think they are, bruh.
They are.
They are. Yep, they are.
Yeah, they're still there.
Yeah, it's because his hood is
Okay,
down, so you don't
never
see.
mind.
Yeah.
All right.
Hood is up.
Yeah.
Up.
Anyways, they say that he can go back. Cecil was listening in. He's like, or actually no. Mark calls Cecil and says that Robot put the number in his phone for him. He says that.
No, well, did we skip something?
No.
We know it's Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Did we
I
say
said that. Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I missed that.
Yeah.
I zoned out.
That's all he got from
It's the
Dinosaurus.
Negroni.
Yeah, I made 2 really good Negronis. Mark's saying it's Las Vegas all over again. And Cecil's basically saying, like, damn it, if you did this again, and Mark's like, yeah, you can throw me in prison, do whatever you want, just help me make it right.
He said, Cecil says to Invincible, if even one person dies, it's on you, because you were the one that broke him out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he
Mark,
finds one of the bombs in the sewers.
Yep.
When he says he found one, but he needs to keep looking for others, so send people to disarm them.
So Mrs. Popper popped in Robot. Robot's analyzing it, and he's like, I don't have no idea what this is. Can you help me? Can you tell me anything? Mark, meanwhile, finds another. They get all the Guardians coming in through portals. And they start trying to find more. I know Outrun at one point is, I like this in the background, Shapesmith is like signing an autograph.
So Robot discovers it's not a bomb. He says it's not like there's energy being released, but it's not like leading to an explosion. It's like sending a signal deeper down or something like that, and he has to keep analyzing it, so he doesn't know what it is.
Yep. And then all of a sudden there's shaking and it's an earthquake, and Robot's like, okay, time's up, no more analyzing, we need to smash the machines. Mark smashes his. Outrun starts destroying some of the ones she finds. And they keep finding more, but ultimately Mark sees Dinosaurus because he comes through a doorway, and they start fighting. And what is this? What happens next? They say
So
they know exactly.
he comes through and Invincible basically says it's Las Vegas all over again, and Dinosaurus says, "Stop! You're wasting your abilities. You're wasting your abilities saving these people. These people are beneath you. You're smart enough to see that. Why save one when you can save billions?" And things. You turn the page and there's an explosion, and you see. What is this? Greenland, Iceland.
Is it? It looks like it could just be.
Well, here's
the ice caps.
U.S. It's up there, but bombs are planted all over it, and so he breaks apart all these ice caps that start melting or just flooding. And Mark's saying, "Tell me what happened." And Dinosaur says, "You need to take a closer look."
Well,
what did I forget?
My question here. Okay.
All right.
So Dinosaurus tells him. He says, "You weren't smart enough to see that all of this has merely been a distraction," meaning the bombs. Okay. So
why was there a distraction if he didn't know?
Why was there a distraction if he didn't? He wasn't expecting him to get his powers back.
Well, maybe for anyone else that would try and stop him.
But Invincible was the one that alerted everybody. Why? How would they even know about bombs?
I don't know. I think Dinosaurus is smart enough that he has redundancies, whether or not someone caught on to something. Right. Like he needed to make sure that those bombs went off without a problem. So there needs to be a catastrophe to happen so that all the heroes are off working on that, so nobody notices.
But
that
nobody
these
would have
things
even
happen.
known about the bombs.
I agree with you, but I'm saying like maybe that's just the crazy / smart,
Maybe.
part of him where he's just like, I need to do.
Backup plan. You know what I mean? Just in case.
No, I know. And you know what, TJ? It's not the first thing that I think has issues with this.
Oh yeah, I know.
Because there's some things coming up that I think
we'll talk about them.
are some issues.
Let's talk about them.
So yeah, Mark said, Dinosaur says you need to take a closer look. Mark flies up higher into the sky with Dinosaurus, and he says, "Oh God," and some really cool 3-panel per page type of spread here where it shows various locations around the world. You got New York, Paris, and Australia, Tokyo, and everything, and they're all being flooded. And Mark says, "You're killing everyone." And that's the end of the issue. Like the death of everyone.
And then the cover.
But how the next one starts, we'll get to it.
This is issue 99. Really cool cover. Yeah, Mark punching Dinosaurus on on a destroyed building, and there's just bodies laying there,
including Alan.
Yeah,
who
Alan.
isn't
Robot.
even on Earth.
No, it's these covers are made so far in advance.
Meant to be misleading. Yeah. This whole issue is awesome because we talk about it a lot. This issue, every single page is a splash page, which is great.
When I think of monumental issues of Invincible, I rarely think, "Oh crap, there's an issue that's entirely splash pages."
I totally think of this.
I honestly always forget about this issue.
Really?
Yeah.
I think
thought
of
you were
this
saying
over
that-
over 100. This is
Do
not
you
the issue
really?
I was talking about.
Yeah.
Think about issue 100.
Yeah.
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 It's good.
Yeah. But yeah, this is a great issue. I love this. This is so cool. It's almost, I almost want it as a coloring book. You know what I mean? I want the black and white version in a full size artist print size or whatever. So yeah, the first words, TJ.
This isn't the death of everyone.
Yep.
Just a significant portion of the population.
He wants to change the
according to
world
my
for
studies.
the better. Yeah.
Just typical Dinosaurus,
Yeah, he's taking it to the extreme. So obviously the Guardians are still on the site in Los Angeles, which is flooding, very quickly. Robot goes into overtime where he's scrambling everybody from the Guardians to the Capes to Wolf Corps, and just getting them all in different areas. And I think this is he immediately tells Cecil, "I have an idea to get the waters to subside, whatever, recede, and I'm sending it over to your think tank. Get it to DA Sinclair and the rest of your brain trust now." And so he immediately says, just I'm stressing this. Keep in mind, he immediately comes out with this idea and sends it to Cecil. Mark flies down with Dinosaurus, saying, "You've made me a mass murderer.
I trusted you. It's basically he's like, you're putting all this on me. I was basically responsible for you."
Mm-hmm.
Lots of cool fight scenes. You know what I think? Not to get
go ahead.
But Cory Walker was a big part of, a lot of the issues in the 90s, with going back and forth. Yeah. And I almost feel like Kirkman was like, "I'm gonna have Cory Walker come in because you got a big issue coming up with just nothing but splash pages."
Yeah.
So
yeah,
just a little
that might have helped.
Little
You're
thought,
right.
little idea I had.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's true, maybe it's not.
Mm-hmm. So they continue fighting. Dinosaurus gives him some shit, basically saying, "You've never been able to beat me physically. How, are you even trying to kill me?" He mocks him for being frustrated and saying that it's not logical. Notice it has turned to night.
They're fighting so long that it's nighttime now.
So yeah, time has passed, and he's talking about how this is what's needed in order to save civilization. It's because he cares. It's not because of he wants glory or anything like that. But now we see Thrag, who is making an announcement to his
Following.
Yeah, to all the Viltrumites.
Who are spending time on Earth.
Mm-hmm. And he's basically saying, I'm sure you all know what's happening on Earth. We are not going to interfere in any way.
Whatever happens to the humans needs to happen to the humans. It's just let nature take its course.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with the Viltrumite Empire.
Mm-hmm. He says, anyone who disobey me will face my wrath. Another cool splash page with Robot. And do you remember his name, Bill?
Is that Black Samson?
Nope.
Shit.
It's from Capes.
Can I get a hint? Blue something?
Nope, you're getting close because it starts with a B.
Ballistic.
Nope. Main character of Capes? 4 letters?
I know
Boom.
it. I know it.
What is it, TJ?
It's Bolt.
Bolt.
Oh, I'd never, ever,
Really?
ever would have gotten there. I almost still don't even believe you.
All right, Bill, I guess we're going to have to reread Capes again.
Okay.
So Robot is working with him, talking about different staging grounds.
Speaking of Blade.
Does kind of look like Blade.
Yeah, he does.
He's wearing sunglasses. It's open season and all suckheads.
No.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to skate uphill.
You couldn't even make it through the line. So Bolt asks, what's the plan? Are we going to get a seawall constructed? Robot says, I've got a team working on something better. We should have it ready. And wait, I'm getting a report that they found Dinosaurus and Invincible. They're tracking their fight right now. They're still in Los Angeles. So there's a helicopter with spotlight on them.
That's a cool page.
Yeah, with the light shining through.
Yeah,
and this is
the
exactly
colors.
what Dinosaurus wanted. He wanted a lot of news coverage.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right?
So
He wanted
Mark's
people to
saying,
see him.
listen to me. Now, the only time we don't get a 1-page splash, we actually get a 2-page here with Mark flying with, Dinosaurus ahead of him, just,
Water splashing everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mark was basically explaining that, I was stupid to ever trust you. You're brilliant. You have great ideas, but you're also insane. We could have saved the world together. You have to die, though. Dinosaur saying, no, I am right. You're standing in my way, but it's you who must die. Now, if you look in the background, you see a portal opened up.
Mm-hmm.
Right here.
You're right.
Something you never really would have thought twice about, and
But
I don't remember ever seeing. And Mark says, all I'm going to do is take you down. You see the building crumble. The news coverage is on them. And then Dinosaurus is holding an unconscious, naked Mark and saying,
When
oh,
he was
good.
just fully clothed a second ago.
Yeah, but the building
when
fell,
you
so
were
you didn't
reading
question it.
Yeah, when we were reading it,
Uh-huh.
we were like, okay, yeah, that's believable for him to be naked.
Yep. It shows his bum crack.
Just a little bit, yep. Dinosaur says to himself that, it's good that the news see this to
make
prove,
them know that they shouldn't defy me.
Yeah,
basically.
essentially. And he says, I'm afraid I have no choice, but it's time for you to die. And
He
goes
puts
to
one hand on either side of his head.
And the reason why this was
And
so
it
believable
ends.
was because Mark just got his powers back. So we were I remember reading this issue like live, you know what I mean? And then the next one, especially not knowing what the fuck was going to happen. And the next one starts very famously.
So before we get there, though, I wanted to say, kind of with you, TJ, saying that, why would he be doing that? Well, why would he be saying this right now? He's talking to no one. This is a clone. Why is he saying, oh, it's a good thing, since you've proven Invincible that you can't stand in my way, it's time for you to die.
But
Is he saying it loud enough for
that's what I'm
TV?
thinking.
He's saying
Okay,
he wanted
yeah.
the newscast. He wanted everyone to see that Invincible died.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I know that. But him saying,
And that they were fighting and Invincible was against him because he didn't want his name to be ruined.
yeah. So issue 100.
Okay, do you remember
What a feat!
Do you remember reading this
Yes,
issue?
I do
you
And
remember
I
where
remember.
you were?
I don't think I.
We
do.
were all here.
Were we really?
We were all
We
here.
were, because I remember we turned
planned
it.
it.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
We did
Yeah,
do
we
that.
were all here. We're all sitting at the kitchen table.
I remember we turned it,
Yep.
and we all go. I knew this was going to happen. I knew the first page was going to be this. I had no doubt. I also remember a week before the issue came out when solicits or preview copies were going out, Ottley even tweeted saying, hey, this there's spoilers for the first couple pages. Nobody look at it. Like kind of like, hey. And I'm like thinking to myself, obviously it's a big deal. He's gonna smash his head. Like, what else could be a big deal? Like, what would happen in the first page after this? Like obviously it's gonna happen, but I didn't know why or how or what that meant. Like, is he really gonna kill Invincible? But yeah, the standard cover, the original cover. Obviously there's like 30 different variants to this. Cool. Shows a ton of heads all over Mark, and Mark in front of a ton of heads. Otherwise, yeah, turn the page. First page, Squirk?
Squish?
No, it says Squirk.
Squap?
Bill, what does that say?
Oh.
Squark. It's SQURORRK.
Yeah.
Squark?
Squirk?
Oh, there would be in there because
I've always been really disgusted by this next page.
The colors make it. The shine
But
of the blood.
the way he ripped him in half, and like you see his brain up there and like the hair, but like it's not even. He doesn't rip him in half. He like, if you look a couple pages, he rips just his like arm and some of his chest off. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like his legs are on one side. It's just his arm and his chest, or right here. Yeah. Yep, and then the newscasters are saying, like, are we broadcasting this? And then he's like, yeah, live.
And then you get everyone's reaction, including Eve's.
Yeah.
Just a double page spread. Everybody in their own box, and it's just all the characters.
Demon Darkblood. We even get, like, Philip Shaft.
Doc Seismic.
Or Philip Shaft's right here with the pen behind his ear. Yeah, Doc Seismic. D.A. Sinclair. There's Black Samson. Craig. Kursk, Titan.
Yeah. Amber's there.
Oh, yeah, Amber.
William.
Yep.
Superman, Clark Kent.
Oh, yeah, there's the Clark Kent one. That's right.
That's weird.
Wolfman.
Just a civilian, right? That looks like Clark Kent.
Yeah, because there's a bunch of civilians
there are
scattered
just random
out.
people.
Powerplex. Yeah. And then Mark. So it's only a couple pages, and then all of a sudden, wait, where am I?
Which is good. Again,
They don't
very
make
good
it
that they
last.
don't make it last. Yeah. Because we're not stupid, right? Comic book readers aren't stupid. Thanks for the shock value, but come on.
Yeah, Mark saying, this is weird. I can't see anything but myself. There's no light. This isn't natural. Hello? And then you hear, hello, Mark Grayson. Meanwhile, we get more superheroes saving people in the floods.
Basically cleaning up the mess that Dinosaur left.
We see Robot working, on building these things. The orbital things that are going to go up into space. Now back to Mark saying, where am I? The last thing I remember was the building collapsing, and the voice says you died, or at least I made everyone think you did. And the voice says, I had access to so much information when I was on that Viltrumite ship. They wanted me to save you. They were so trusting. You think I wouldn't raid their databanks for all the Viltrumite information I could? I now know more about your people than you do. And then Mark says, Dinosaurus, where are you?
He says, I'm standing right in front of you, and it shows Mark basically strapped to a table. But he's in this state of being where basically Dinosaurus is just speaking to his mind. Mm-hmm. Invincible's still like in this dark place, the sunken place.
He says your ears are your weak spot.
Yeah.
He
used his ears to kind of put him in this state of being.
There's a frequency that can basically put him into a coma almost. He tells him how during the building collapsing, he opened up the portal, swapped him with a lifeless clone, which he was able to make.
He thought that he would be useful in the coming days, but he wouldn't. He couldn't perfect the clone. Like the clone would just be like a out of touch, version of Mark.
Mm-hmm. And then he eviscerated it in front of TV. Like he basically says this. He's like, "You're a martyr. Everyone saw that you died trying to stop me. Now you're free. You're free to help me. We can continue our plans."
Yeah. You're not.
Aww.
You're
free
not.
to save the world.
That's like a crazy ex-girlfriend kind of thing to say,
right?
Like, now we can be together
forever. Yeah.
I'll find you.
I'll find you. And then we see Immortal with Duplicate and the twins, and Immortal's basically saying, I need to go. Like, near every coastal city is underwater. Like, I'm needed. And
she
so,
says, you're needed here, you're needed to be with your family. And he says, no, like, I need to go out there to make sure that other people can be with their family. And she says, you're right, go.
we see
Levy.
Angstrom go through a portal underwater, and he's like, has this great shocked face on him. And he's like, what happened here? Whatever it is, it won't keep me from having my revenge.
And then he brings up
Invincible is dead.
a newspaper. Brings up a newspaper and says Invincible is dead.
Yep. Mark's freaking out, saying, after all this, you really think we can work together? And Dinosaurus is saying, yeah, we can do this. This is what you wanted. That by flooding this, the population will be reduced significantly, but it'll make things better. Typical dinosaurs, way of thinking. But then Mark kind of convinces him. He's saying, like, you sacrifice this on a theory. What did you ever consider that? And Dinosaur's saying, no, that's impossible. And then he actually goes on to say, like, maybe what you did didn't change anything. Maybe all you did was delay what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, you just killed all these people. You just, did all of this.
Delayed the inevitable.
And it's still going to happen. Think about that. Maybe you don't have all the answers. And
if it had kept going down the course of action that it was taking, then people could have responded to it and reacted to it and created a resolution to it.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, you killed all of these people and delayed them from, worsening the Earth. But it's just going to take a longer time for them to do exactly what you tried to stop them to do.
Yeah. Mark says the villain always thinks he's the hero in his story, which makes you think of what, TJ?
Smallville.
That's right.
I am the villain of the story.
And he says, I've told people that our plans were sound and that what we're doing is right, but, I had all this time, it turns out that we had become the bad guys in our own story. Well, newsflash, we are the bad guys, and we're both going to have to pay for our actions. Hello, are you even listening? And Dinosaurs wakes him up and says, you'll be disoriented for a minute. And he says that he set him free, and he says that Mark is right, and that
he thought of himself too superior to the human race.
He distanced himself and forgot. Yeah, like he basically said he was like a god. Yep. He viewed himself like a god, looking down on his flock, never doing what was good for the sake of doing it, just only ever serving to inflate my own ego. I never fully realized that till now.
So the only way out of this is you need to kill me.
Mm-hmm. That cycle needed to end. It should have ended in Las Vegas. You have to kill me.
And then you turn the page, and Invincible walks out with bloody sneakers, leaving a trail of blood.
Can we just take a minute to just look at the look on Dinosaurus' face? Like he
realized it.
He's never really shown any kind of emotion on his face other than right here,
mm-hmm.
where he says, you should never have, like, let him go, pretty
mm-hmm.
much. And then it's right before the panel where you have to kill me.
Yeah.
Like, look at that. Look at
the cycle
this.
should have ended.
One thing so Dinosaurus is dead, willingly. However, David Anders didn't really get a say in it.
Yeah.
So...
Sorry, David Anders.
Now you're dead.
I mean, at least he wasn't that great of a guy. He was kind of a...
Well, I mean, he was a human guy.
Oh, I agree. I know.
He's kind of indifferent about everything.
Yeah. So...
He walks out and he sits on the ledge.
So I'm gonna say it now, real quick, before we move on into this conversation.
Say it.
The timing is really weird in this.
It is, and it gets worse.
Really weird. I know it gets worse.
Yeah.
Like, how much time has passed?
Oh, what do you mean?
No, I mean like the timing and like how much time has passed. When did this fight start?
I picture this as dawn. All of that happened overnight.
It all happened overnight?
Yeah.
Like
the sun is rising, not setting. You can see the sun rising in the distance. That whole conversation of him being blacked out happened overnight.
But I thought another day had passed.
Yeah, look at, like, robots really, they're making a lot of leeway on that.
Because at one point I thought he told Cecil that it was going to take a few days at least.
Maybe
and so I thought they were fighting for days or something.
I don't think
it's out of the realm of possibility.
I don't think that makes it weird, though.
I think it has to be overnight for it to make sense.
Really?
Oh, it's definitely not. anything
But
less
then-
than
but then-
24 hours.
I think it could be a couple days. You don't know.
So that Mark and Dinosaurus were fighting for a couple days?
No, I think that he was in a coma for a couple days.
he was
So
Right.
That conversation
Eve believed
took-
Mark was dead for a couple days.
at least.
Okay.
And she was like, I don't know.
But then
because then,
right
like,
here,
Nolan
right
and-
here, Cecil ports out and says, "How?" And he says, "Trace the signal when he teleported away after killing you. He dead?" Mark's like, "Yeah." So he just waited a couple days after they teleported away to teleport back to the
I
base.
think the issue. So I got the impression that it happened overnight. I think the issue is that the fact that Robot and like that scene was during the day.
Not even that, because that could be it's anywhere else in the world where it's daytime at that time. But like he built all of that in less than 24 hours, 3 giant space stations, and it couldn't happen over a couple days because Cecil immediately went to find the way. It's one of those things that the more I think about and the more I look into it, the more it doesn't really line up. But it's kind of just like, oh well, it needed to happen.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. That's it.
Invincible basically admits his wrongdoing and it basically admits that he's a criminal and that he needs to pay for what he's done, pay for his crimes. He says,
I like how Mark's or Cecil's saying, still feel like the moral authority that you know what's right for the world,
Yeah,
and
he's
Mark's
kinda
like
rubbing
no,
it in.
and he's like, well, that's a start.
I hated Cecil for that.
Yeah, and he says, what comes next? That's up to you. And Mark says, I assume it's jail. I feel like I should pay for my crimes. Try to help whatever. I hope I can help to do what's best to help with the sea level and restore the cities. And Cecil says, oh, that. And he says, Rex designed an artificial moon with a fixed orbit, made 2 of them. We've had teams working around the clock 4 weeks.
So there you go.
For
it
weeks.
did happen for weeks.
They'll hang in
over
a
the
synchronized
course of weeks.
orbit. When did these weeks begin?
Weeks ago.
I know, but like, did the fight? So the fight lasted weeks.
No, I think
Mark was dead for weeks.
Mark was dead for weeks.
All right.
Again, why do you think not? Because Cecil showed up?
He said how did you he said how
Basically, how did you get here?
Yeah, he said trace the signal when he teleported away
So
after
he knew
killing
where his
you.
base was.
So he
So Cecil
teleported away
knew.
after the fight. 2 weeks later, Cecil had to have known and just wait.
Cecil knew.
And they
And
were just
Cecil just watched, maybe?
and waiting until
Maybe he watched from orbit.
yeah.
All right.
He had other things to fucking worry about.
I also feel like in a couple pages, we see Eve like
But
mid grieving.
this is because
2 weeks later.
Nolan and them show up.
Did they show up? When did they show up?
They showed up right here.
Yeah, 2 weeks later.
Yes. They showed up.
It
2
looks
weeks
like
later.
Eve just found out Mark died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe they showed up 2 weeks ago. I know.
No, because he shows up. That's what I mean.
I don't know.
Anyways, Mark says how many dead. Cecil says last I heard it was
800,000.
over 800,000. Could be in 1 million before it's all done. Could be a lot worse. He says, please let me talk to Eve before you lock me away. And Cecil says I had a different idea, and he gives him the earpiece. He says, I'd like it to go back to the old days unless you'd rather go to prison. Mark's like, you'd have me work for you again after all this? Cecil smiles and says, why not? I've worked with villains before. I like, it's funny because like, this is issue 100. I feel like I have issues with it where I normally don't have with other things. Like, this is a big deal. I know it's not Mark's fault.
I feel like
I know it's not Mark's fault, but it's like he's like, we're all good. It's only 1 million people that you killed.
yeah.
Let's make it go back to the old days.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Oh, okay.
No, I agree. I think there's
I feel like it's like, okay, let's just kind of like, okay, let's
Move
just
along.
Let's move along.
Yeah, I agree.
It feels like that happened a couple times in this issue,
yeah.
and it's like, all right.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy about it.
Yeah.
Like,
anyway.
cool stuff happens. I like what happens. I like that he ends up working for Cecil. I like the earpiece. I like where it all ends up. It's just the way it happened. It's one of the I guess during this whole reread that we've been doing, it's just I'm not crazy about it. All right.
Nolan and Debbie come home to find Eve there. She's crying and says that he's dead. They broadcast it live on television. They freak out and Nolan says, "What? Who killed him? Like, how can I find him? Who did this?"
And I mean, yeah, you could say that, yeah, Eve's known for 2 weeks that Mark was dead, and she just had another moment where it hit her again, and she got really upset, destroyed the house.
That happens.
Yeah, totally. You get what I'm saying, though? Like, you have to rationalize it. You have to, yeah.
Mark shows up, and he says, "I'm not dead, it was a clone." And she says, "Prove it," and he whispers something in her ear, and she
What do you
hugs
think
him.
he whispered in her ear?
It's something dirty. It's something dirty.
That birthmark on your inside butt cheek.
It's always, why is it
Mark,
always have
it
to
is
be,
you!
it always
'Cause-
has to be inside the butt cheek or like, you know.
Well, it's got to be an area that no one else sees.
Right.
Like the butt cheek.
No, it's that they fool around somewhere specific. Like, remember when we saw Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and then she's like, "It is you." That time. So yeah, Debbie and Nolan are like, "Oh, okay, great.
Oh,
you know,
cool, you're alive.
yeah. Well, we've clearly moved on to the next crisis. He's great to see Debbie again." Mark says, "I already got the guy who did this." Nolan says, "That's a relief." Mark says, "I need to talk to Eve alone."
They go out onto the roof, and
Love this scene.
this is kind of cool because Mark talks about how he's like, "I remember when I was on this roof when I first learned to fly, and I just kind of like jumped off the roof, expecting to be okay, expecting to fly, and luckily I was. And ever since then, that's how I've been living my life. I've just been jumping out there, and things have luckily worked out, and I can't do that anymore. I have to be an adult,
Yeah.
and I have to think things through."
Which
and
is
that's
like,
how I'm gonna...
that's what Eve calls him out for in, what was it, 132 or something? The first issue of The End of All Things. She freaks out and they get in a fight, and she's like, "All you do is jump.
Yeah.
All you do is run into things." You remember that?
Yeah.
And they get in this huge fight up in the air on Telestria. And I love that. That is like a huge character trait for Mark. And he calls it out right here. He knows it.
Yep,
And
he
so,
says,
yeah, he says, I'm gonna do that with Cecil. I want to what I tried to do
forever.
And he says, I'm gonna be prepared. Whatever comes up, no more surprises. And Eve says, "Mark, turn the page. I'm pregnant."
I'm pregnant.
Chapter 5, issue 101.
Issue 101.
And it shows Xandel's Invincible hugging
A crying Eve.
a crying Eve in the rubble. Very misleading for those
Of course, you gotta.
looking ahead at the solicits. So this
This is great. This is great. I love these two pages.
is such
3
a
pages.
good scene because this is the scene that we've been waiting for. Honestly, these next 2 issues. I was gonna say the last issue is the one that I think is underrated.
Oh, yeah.
But these last 2 issues I think are very underrated because first of all, this scene is a scene that honestly we've been waiting for like almost 30 issues now. We've been ever since they made this deal for the Viltrumites to stay on Earth. They even said like maybe they'll come to their senses and they'll fall in love with humans like we did, and that's what this scene does. So, Thrag
And it's
says,
great reading this issue right here, knowing how the
happened.
series ends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's totally like, yeah.
Yeah. So Thrag says, "Your behavior is unacceptable. You disgust me." And he's talking to 3 of them. He says to Anessa, he says, "And you refuse to procreate." He looks at Craig and says, "You must detect." He says, "You risk detection by meddling in the events on Earth." And then he looks at, help me out,
Lucan.
Lucan or Lucian?
We decided it was Lucan.
Lucan.
So Lucan, you
Damn it,
refuse
which
to
means it's
procreate
Lucian.
with more than one human, and I love this because they each say
have
their own side.
and they all have like decent explanations.
Yeah, so Anessa says, "I have never wanted to produce offspring. I'm aware of my responsibilities, but I expect you to recognize the difference in what you're asking me to do and what my male counterparts are doing," because she actually has to get pregnant. Craig says, my mate was in danger. Many of them were. I couldn't bring myself to sacrifice any of them. Besides, isn't the idea to produce as many offspring as possible? And then Lukens is the best. He says, my mate, she has been ... hurt in the past by a companion who was disloyal. She doesn't approve of my procreating with other women. Were I to do so, she would become upset, and I don't wish to do that to her.
And you just
because I care about her a great deal.
And you just see Thrag and his hands on his head, like, oh my
shit!
God.
Like exactly what he didn't want to happen. Mm-hmm. Exactly what happened.
And I love his line here. He says, "Is there no end to this poison that is infecting us all? This affection for these lesser creatures. It's disgusting."
He says that they are just cattle that we use to better our empire.
Nothing more. And this is like, I agree. And
yeah, Nessa's very like.
Yeah, she doesn't really.
Give a fuck.
Yeah. And Lucan's like, he says it's hard to explain. You've remained here. You haven't exposed yourself to it. It's amazing, like nothing I've ever felt before. To have someone care for you, to think about you, to be allowed to think about them, the bond that it forms. And then Craig says, amazing. It changes everything, Thrag. It changes us. Like,
so good.
This is the end of the comic.
This is what I mean. Like this portion of, I feel like, very underrated.
Yeah.
We never talk about this or think about this.
Yeah,
but this
I
awesome.
forgot how impactful. Like,
yeah, I enjoyed rereading this.
I always knew like this happened. You know,
Yeah.
them explaining how they're becoming attached, or I love
just
all
how
of them.
Emotional they
but
are.
like, yeah, like they're straight up changing.
Yeah,
like it's
and
happening.
they blatantly said it. They're like not even afraid.
Exactly,
to talk
and I
about
forgot
it.
about that too. And them calling out Thrag, like, "Hey, dude, you got to come down here." Like, it's you don't know what it's like.
I would almost say that they are even more hooked than Nolan was, and Nolan was on Earth for years and years and years. But even Nolan still started to carry out his mission.
Plan,
he killed the Guardians, he fought his own son, and then left Earth.
Well, I think that had a lot to do with there not being another a precedent. You know what I mean? Before him, so he cared for him, but he was like, I have a duty.
Yeah,
but they do too.
But they know that they
were like,
this is
kind
all
of
they have
normal.
left. Like let's just do this instead. Whereas Nolan was like, no, I have to fulfill and have to go back to the Viltrum Empire. So back to Mark and Eve on the roof. They're like, you're pregnant, and they're like, yeah, all right. And Mark says, no, I'll do whatever you want. I'll support you. And she says, I won't go through that again, referring to getting another abortion. Mark says, okay, then we're having a baby. And they're like, okay, we're having a baby. And it's like,
okay, we're
having a baby. And then they end up going back inside. Nolan.
They say, let's get back inside before my parents think that we're having sex. And then they go downstairs, and Nolan and Debbie are like on top of each other, making out. He's grabbing that ass.
And Nolan says, you guys were gone for a long time. Everything okay? And they're like, yeah, everything's fine. And Eve fixes the house up with her powers. We see some repair in a random city. And I love the touch that there's fish everywhere because it was all flooded. Immortal shows up to help. And Robot's like, hey, wow, great to see you come out of retirement to help out. And Immortal says, where do you need me? Robot's like, oh, these streets are covered, but we've got Yeti and Kaboomerang in this area, and then a couple blocks over is Best Tiger and Pegasus, blah, 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 blah. And Immortal's like, Pegasus? Yeti? Kaboomerang? Best what? How long was I out? I've never heard of any of them, because he's been out for a while.
Living the suburban life.
Yep. Mark shows up to help Robot. He shows up with Eve. And he's like, all right, hey, where do you need me? I'm here to help. I heard you guys have cleaned up an entire city in 6 hours. That's nuts. Where can I help? And Robot says, Mark, what are you doing here? And Mark's like, I'm here to help get things back to normal. And he's like, but you're supposed to be dead. And after what you've done in prison. And a giant droid of robots crushes Mark to the ground, and you see Rex saying, you let him go. Did you help him too? Is that why you were distracted? Were you distracting us in Los Angeles? And he calls all the Guardians to his location to help. Cecil comes through the portal saying, all right, calm down, everybody, calm down. Calm down. I really like Mark saying, guys, I'm really sorry to, and a Kaboomerang hits him in the head, and blows up. And he's like, I take it back. Mark said, Rex is still incredibly pissed off, can't believe that he's just here allowed to be doing what he's doing. Cecil brings Mark with him, and they go through the portal, and Eve stays to help clean up. And then here's the explanation for the cover. Xandal says, Rex, calm down, and there's more important things to worry about. And Rex is like, you think I don't know? What he did. We're doing this because of what he did. And Xandal snaps, saying he made one mistake. You think it's not haunting his every moment. You think he's not thinking about it. You don't think he wishes he could take it all back. And then there's like this moment of everybody looking at Xandal, and then it's him comforting Eve. But clearly that was him.
Being passive aggressive about him killing his parents.
I don't think passive aggressive is the right word, but he was
Projecting.
Thank you. Yeah. He was projecting a little bit. So yeah, then we see in the Pentagon, Cecil and Mark walking. Cecil explains he hasn't had a chance to explain to everybody. Mark says, I hope you enjoy damage control because my father's back on Earth. Cecil says that's great. When it rains, it pours. Also, just so you know, Eve is pregnant. And Cecil says, I can help with that. And he shows him to...
One thing about that, though, is, like, when they were on the roof, he said, let's not tell anybody. And she said, no, I totally agree. And then the first time you see Cecil, he's like, boy, away.
Yeah, I think he was
pregnant.
I think he was using that as, like, a...
Let's not tell our parents. Let's not tell Oliver, William. Like, let's not, get it out there. But he has a reason for telling Cecil, which we're about to see. But first, Cecil shows him the body of Dinosaurus. And Cecil says, I don't know why you want to see this. Mark marked his 6th vertebrae with my thumb. I wanted to make sure he's dead, so that somehow you didn't revive him or allow him to revert to his human form.
Like you did with Conquest.
Which is the first time he brings this up.
It. And then Cecil is like kind of shocked, like, I didn't know you knew about that. And he's like, yeah, I knew about it, but with everything that happened with the Viltrumites, it didn't seem right to bring it up, so I never did.
I like how he says, during the Viltrumite War, I killed him again. So then back at the home.
So Cecil knew that Conquest escaped, but up until that moment, he didn't know. He thought that Conquest was still out there, and then Invincible was like, by the way, I fucking took care of your shit.
Which is funny, because think about this. Mm-hmm. Cecil knew Conquest was still out there. Then Cecil finds out, the Viltrumites are living on Earth.
Yeah.
So it's like, shit, Conquest is living on Earth. So yeah. Back on at the house, Eve is upset with Mark for bringing someone into the house. She is a doctor who is going to help with the pregnancy.
What does this remind you of? A nurse who can see through...
I don't know.
People's... The school nurse in Sky High.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, yeah, the old lady.
Oh man! If you've never seen Sky High, watch Sky High and then watch it again with us, because we did a watch along podcast where you can listen to us. Have fun, watch that movie. So yeah, they Eve talks about how she doesn't trust the government. They're the ones that did this to me, who gave me my powers, but killed my mother. She explains, what's her name again? Forgot her name. Sherry. Sherry says that she actually doesn't
is the
work.
Nurse who's basically doing, like, checking on the baby. She has X-ray vision. She can see right through her stomach.
She says that she actually doesn't work for the government. That she was just recommended. And Sherry actually is in the final issue of Invincible. And she checks on the baby. Says the baby's doing fine. But she talks a little bit about Eve's powers. She says that she actually uses all matter and processes it along with your digestion, so your powers burn a lot of calories. But the problem is that you don't want your powers to rob any of those essential nutrients that would otherwise be passed to the baby, so you need to stop using your powers. So Eve can't use her powers anymore. And this issue ends with Cecil setting up Nolan and Debbie on the moon base, which was formerly part of the Guardians, but now they're at those orbiting satellite things instead. And
Cecil says you have to pay for your crimes. You can't be allowed to just live on Earth, so you're being banished to the moon. And then Debbie is like, you can't do this. And he's like, listen, anytime you want to go shopping, you want to do anything, just teleport to Earth and do your shopping. Do what you got to do. But you can't be seen like Nolan can't be seen walking around Earth after he killed so many people, or like did what he did. He betrayed Earth, you know. And he's like, also, you need to pay some kind of rent while you're here, and your rent is basically, you know, just down the road on the moon. You got all of the Viltrumites there, and I want you to keep an eye on them. And that's how that ends. It ends with Thrag flying up over the dome, and he's watching them, and he looks pissed.
Yep.
So that's the end of that one.
So the final issue of volume 18 out of 25.
There's really good things
102.
about this, and there's really not so good things about this.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
This issue?
Yeah.
All right. Cool cover, really dynamic of them fighting on the moon. You can see in the background Earth and the area in which the bombs went off. It looks a little different. I wonder if I'm sure that's intentional. But otherwise, it starts with Nolan
just immediately breaking through the dome.
No, I'm saying Nolan talking to Debbie about
sorry.
what are we
Thrag.
going to do to pass all this time?
And then Thrag immediately breaks through the dome, starts attacking Nolan.
Cool scene where Nolan like throws Debbie underneath the airlock, you know, in order to get her to safety.
Yeah, but now she's exposed to, you know, space. All the air is being sucked out.
No, I'm saying like after that, Nolan saves her and then throws her
to safety, and then she catches her breath.
Yeah. I liked they start fighting on the moon for a little bit, Nolan and Thrag, and Nolan's like, I didn't pose a threat to you. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? And Thrag's like, no threat? Really? You really think that? You have no idea, do you?
Let me tell you a tale.
Yeah, let me tell you where you really come from. And there it is.
And then it's the
cliche
classic
pose
with the hand.
The callback.
Yeah.
Of him reaching out. So he talks about how, you know, Viltrum was
it's kind of a recap.
A paradise. Lord Argol had many heirs, but they were all hidden. And one day, eventually he was killed because by Thetis, not Thaddeus, Thetis, and the population erupted into violence after he was killed. Hundreds of years passed, but I emerged as the Grand Regent because I was the strongest. Then the Scourge virus hit.
But he was put in place to find the heir to Argol.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what his sole purpose was, to find it. He searched everywhere for it, and then he realized.
Yeah, but he realized that he had become a better ruler than even Argol.
So he stopped looking for the heir to Argol.
Yeah, he assumed that the heirs died to the Scourge virus.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how disgusted I was to learn that you sided with the betrayer Thetis, who murdered your father, which is one of those things that I always forget about.
Yeah.
They just murdered Nolan's father, Mark's grandfather. You destroyed our home planet.
And come to find out you're the heir to Argol.
Yeah. I could never allow you to take my throne. And then Nolan cuts him off, saying, I don't care. Which is another fun play off of this, you know, retelling. You know, normally it lasts a couple pages and all that. Yeah. But this time it's like, no, I don't care.
Him. Says, I don't care. You can keep your title. I don't want it. I don't want to lead the Viltrumite Empire.
But Thrag doesn't like the fact that anyone could have a claim to the throne, whether it be Nolan or
Mark. He says, I can't let anybody find out. I have to
that's
kill
the bigger
you.
problem.
That's the
yeah. Because if anybody finds out, it could you know,
which we
challenge
see
him.
Exactly that.
Yep. So
they're fighting, and the Thrag's Viltrumite following basically overhears the entire conversation and catches Thrag's punch
before killing Nolan, whose eye is popped out.
Yeah. This is brutal.
Yeah.
And Anessa says, you found the heir to Argol? And he says, and he's weak. Look at him. Look at him before you. He is not worthy of. And then they all attack him.
I like how Craig's like, we never followed Argol's strength. We followed his wisdom. That you don't understand. That shows how foolish we were to ever follow you. So you will die, you know, before, you know, I call for the right of execution, and then Nolan stops
close
them.
To killing him.
Yeah.
And then Nolan says, no, let him live. and then they all bow to him.
Yeah, cool 2-page
Awesome
spread.
fucking. I love it.
So
Isn't that awesome with Thrag in the background floating?
another thing I don't think we talk about enough, and this is the issue that I was originally talking about, is like that fight was awesome. Not just the conversation, but like the fight, like the choreography of it, like Ottley's art. I thought that was really, really awesome.
This page is beautiful. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then some time goes by, and
Weeks.
yeah, Nolan is standing in front of all of the Viltrumites, wearing his big fluffy cape now, saying that we're all still receiving, kind of, getting used to the news. It was never my desire to lead, but who am I to deny my birthright? And he is the ruler now. Some of you know me to be a traitor, but I see things different, and I expect some of you now do the same. And that's the thing. He's talking about how, like, you've been living on Earth for a while now, so maybe some of you are starting to kind of come around to my way of thinking. Grand Regent Thrag was right to bring you here, right to focus on a repopulation, right to allow you to interact. We all have begun to learn a new way of life from these people that we will continue, and I want you to welcome the changes you will experience. It is a new dawn for the Viltrumite Empire, and I love seeing Mark just kind of mixed in with everybody, being like, "This is so weird."
So this is what the negative thing that I had to say about it is, like, I almost got whiplash on how rushed this issue was. Like, it starts out like everything is like normal, and then it's like they start out and he's like, "You're the heir to Argo, I'm attacking you now," and he's like, "I don't care, I don't want it," and then literally you turn the page from him saying "I don't want it" to him wearing the fucking Grand Regent cape, and he's like, "Who am I to deny it?" Like,
yes, 100%. I totally
everything
see
fucking
that.
changes within like 3 issues, like huge story issue things change within like 3 pages.
Yeah, I thought that was weird. Where he's like, "I don't want it. What are you talking about?"
Yeah,
like,
he's like,
no,
"Who am
you
I to
can.
deny
Well,
it?"
he basically says you can have it. I don't want to challenge you.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is,
Yeah,
all
he
the
had
other
to, for
Viltrumites
sure.
are like, "Oh no, we're gonna kill this guy.
Yeah.
We don't have a leader. We're all bowing to you." And
Yeah.
he's like, "Well, fuck.
It totally
I can't."
makes sense.
Yeah,
It's
it
just-
is quick.
And Nolan's a smart guy, and he's like, well, if I don't lead them,
If I don't, yeah.
and I could lead them in a way that would, like he says, he's like, I want you to welcome the changes as opposed to like repress these feelings and stuff.
Yes. But maybe they could have had like that conversation happen before he's like, "Okay, I'll take it." Like, literally you turn the page and he's like, "Here I am."
Yeah, it's almost like it could have been 2 issues.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So just something. Doesn't make anything bad or
Yeah.
anything. It's still good, but
Yep. So Mark fills Cecil in.
Charming.
Cecil leaves, and him and Eve are talking. And he's telling Eve how weird it is seeing him up there and everything that's happening, and so much is changing. And and he's talking about how things used to be so different, and how sometimes he wishes he can go back to the way things used to be and go back to high school when his dad was just his dad. And but then I realized that was before I met you, and you're the one constant in my life. And I want you to always be there. And he's like, "Mark," and he's like, "I'm screwing this up. I should be doing this better. You deserve way better. I don't even have a ring." And you see like a pink glow on the bottom. And then you turn the page. The last page is Mark saying, "Well, wow, that's a nice one." And she says, "It's the ring I always wanted." And he says, "So will you?" And she says, "Of course I will."
and it ends.
That's
So
how it
Eve
ends.
created her own ring.
Yep. So overall, it's a good trade. It's funny because I feel like it has some of the most like crazy
Iconic.
changes, iconic
Yeah.
changes. It's a milestone. It sets up a lot of things that are going to be happening over the course of these issues. But ultimately, like, it's the one that we've had the most issues with.
Yeah.
That just goes to show how good Invincible is, though.
No,
like,
I know.
Like, it's awesome. Like, it was great. There was so much stuff that happened in that, but there are still things that are better.
Yeah, we
you
can
know?
nitpick a little bit.
I feel like this is where it started to get a little rushy. Like, this is where it's just like... Yeah. Yeah,
I
Battle
don't know,
Beast
man.
and...
Battle Beast, and this is the beginning of Angstrom and
It's
Robot.
Angstrom.
Like, this is it, boys. This is...
I know, but
I don't know, man.
what I'm saying
I'm
is
excited.
this is where
alternate dimensions.
The next one is the one that I've been looking forward to for a long time.
The next trade?
Yes.
Oh, man.
Oh my gosh. Issues 108 and 109.
Yeah,
Holy
this
shit.
is 103 to 109.
Yeah.
Like, 109 is one of my favorite issues.
108 is one of my favorite
108
issues.
is crazy. Man. No, I'm
one's
excited.
gonna be
Lots of
Yeah.
Rex, lots of Monster Girl.
Next
Also-
time is
Oh
Yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. Oh yeah.
Volume 19, The War at Home.
That's what it's called, The War at Home.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. This is a long episode.
Holy
so
shit. This is
we,
like the longest rereader we've ever done in life. I'm so ready for bed.
Yeah, you've got Disney, TJ. You're leaving soon, so we don't have too much time to talk about other stuff. So I'm gonna wrap up while I find my notes. Have you watched anything or played anything you want to talk about? Real
I
quick?
watched and purchased the Jay and Silent Bob reboot. It finally came out on digital.
Oh, really? How was it?
It was really good.
Yeah.
It was really, really, really good for something that wasn't. I don't know why he did it that way, where he didn't release it wide.
Yeah.
Like they just went on tour and kind of did like a limited release thing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was fucking hilarious. The third act was the weakest part of the movie. Do you like the
Nah.
like Clerks,
Yeah.
Clerks 2, Chasing Amy?
Yeah.
No?
Not crazy about him.
I loved it. I thought
Yeah.
it was great.
Yeah.
TJ?
I don't like them.
We saw 1917.
We did.
Enjoyed it. It was
Very
good.
good.
Did you see any other Oscar movies, TJ?
Yes, I have seen most of them. Jojo Rabbit was
How was
awesome.
Jojo Rabbit?
Was it
I
like
really want to see
really,
it.
really, really good?
It was awesome.
Okay,
Like,
good.
Really
I'm gonna add
fucking
that to
good.
my list.
Like honestly, like out of honestly, this is the weakest
Oscar season.
best movie nominations I've seen. But what is it? Fucking Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, I still
Fucking
need to see
amazing.
it. I still need to see that too.
Amazing.
Was
I'm
it
so
really?
behind
Oh,
on stuff. I'm
it's
so
so
behind.
good. It's so good. Literally, I watched it like by myself. I rented it. I was
You're
at
the first
home.
person that I've heard that
And,
has
like,
said that.
Really?
Yeah.
Mike Carter watched it. He said the same
Yeah,
thing.
he loves
Yeah,
it
he
too.
loves it.
Yeah.
He said it was his favorite movie last year.
Me and Liz
I need to
Literally,
watch it.
At the end of the movie, I was watching it by myself. At the end of the movie, I was like up, and I was like, yeah, like cheering,
Really?
like
Good. Shit.
But
Wow.
literally, it's the whole movie is like watching episodes of a TV show. Like it's like different stories, you know.
Kind of,
But
yeah.
it's awesome. It's really really good.
Right.
What else? What other movies were there? 1917 was great.
Yeah.
Parasite? Did you watch Parasite?
I didn't see Parasite.
No.
That was one of the ones I didn't see.
Did you end up going to see Little Women yet?
No, that's another
Oh,
one I didn't see.
You got to see that one for
there's
your
another one
if
I
you're trying to
wanna
watch
talk
all of
about.
them.
I don't want to see
Otherwise,
that one.
what you're thinking, TJ? I did watch and finish Witcher. Thought it was very good. I loved that. I rewatched a lot of Clone Wars and stuff like that just because I've just been down a Star Wars kick because I played and beat Jedi Fallen Order. Got 100% platinum. Did the whole deal. Loved that. Beat Messenger. So kind of in a good place where I'm caught up on a lot of like shows and video games and everything. So I'm prepared to like I think I'm gonna start finally watch HBO Watchmen.
Yes.
I can't wait. I'm
So
really excited to
good.
watch
So
that.
smart.
It's not renewed, though.
So
It's-
smart.
No, they said
it's-
they didn't want to do a second season.
Really?
Yeah, they said they wanted one and done. Like we don't have a second season to tell.
Oh, wow.
So that's awesome.
Well, I was gonna say A Marriage Story was very bland. Not a bad movie, but
I've heard great acting, but
Scarlett
very
Johansson definitely deserves to win it.
wow.
For sure. I think that like Joker, we all saw Joker. It was very depressing. I think Joker, out of all the nominations, should Joaquin Phoenix should win. I don't think he will because I think he's doing himself a disservice because he's winning all these other awards, and every time he wins an award, he like
Badmouths.
badmouths like the not the
Wow.
Academy,
And the
but
award.
whoever gives them
Yeah.
the award, he badmouths them. Like when he was on the Golden Globes, he was swearing a lot. Like I don't know if
Really?
they're gonna give
Shit.
it to him.
I didn't see that.
I think he would have though.
Yeah.
because he was awesome in that movie.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Bill, I did read White Knight.
Curse of the White Knight?
Dude,
Fuck,
it's
dude.
so good.
Holy
it's so
shit.
good.
Oh, yeah, I have questions about it that we need to talk about.
We'll talk after.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah. Any other video games, comic books, TV shows, movies, anything else worth bringing up? We'll talk. We'll be back in a couple of weeks for the Oblivion Song podcast to talk about what is probably a pretty big issue for the Oblivion Song. TJ, enjoy your time in Disney. This week's outro song, though, is called Connection from our friend Wyatt Layne, an Invincible fan who also does our outro music each week. You can check out his stuff on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify. Otherwise, we'll be back next month to talk all about the appearances of Invincible and Invincible characters in other comics. Thank you all for listening. And thanks again to Pete at loud_Pete from the Comics Pals for being our guest on this episode. Thank you all, and bye.
Bye.
See ya. This is a very good macaroni. Because it rhymes with Negroni.
Oh!
No.
Fascinating. A little bit of a stretch there, I think, maybe.
I did make a good one, didn't I? Because this is fucking good.
That's good. That's good.
Real good. All right.